Receiving this transmission, you are the resistance.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's October 1st. I had Matt Bracken, former Navy SEAL and counterterrorism expert, on yesterday. And we both predicted you would start seeing mass shootings at big public venues like rock concerts and football games, and that would be used to trigger a civil war in America. On Friday, we're going to play excerpts of it, and we laid out the left's admissions all over the news and all over their own websites and in meetings they're having that we have videos of all over the country, that they're preparing for mass terror attacks in America to mainly go out and kill white people. And it is white folks who are the ones saying they're going to go out and kill white people. In fact, the leader of Canada came out after another Somali refugee stabbed and ran over more people yesterday and called for an end to white supremacy. France also called for the same thing after 2 women were stabbed to death at a train station and then other people were run over. I'm not kidding. This is Stockholm Syndrome. They're invoking it on you. They don't have it. They attack you, then they tell you to submit. Last week, a Sudanese migrant, went to a Christian church. He said he wanted to kill white people and Christians, and he did just that. All yelling Allah Akbar. But you never hear about it a day after it happens. Daily attacks, multiple attacks per day, all over the Western world, and nothing is being done. Meanwhile, the FBI is launching a civil rights investigation to make sure, and I guess he was treated lovingly and properly. So it's all coming up today, ladies and gentlemen. This is the biggest massacre in U.S. history using a firearm. There are 58 dead, 515 injured. Is the latest numbers that came out just 5 minutes ago with the police having a press conference. Now, we've talked to our military experts, and they all agree that what you were hearing was a belt gun. That's why the speed goes up and goes down. And it could be somebody with a professional belt-fed gun or someone with some other systems that you can purchase and then adapt into an AR-15 or AK. Hillary is calling for taking the Second Amendment as usual. Now, here's the big news. Islamic State has taken responsibility, and the man known by the police for issues, I guess mental illness, had reportedly converted to Islam in the last 2 months. And even though that's being reported by Reuters and others, you're not seeing it on CNN or MSNBC. We've been tracking it. Maybe I missed it. But that's pretty big news, isn't it? Now, let's stop right there. Who was allied with ISIS and al-Qaeda during the entire last 6 years of the Arab Spring? Well, Al Gore called for an Arab Spring here in America. Al Gore, Phil Mudd, and many others also said, like the former deputy director of the CIA, Phil Mudd said, or like the former head of the CIA, Mr. Brennan said, there will be terror attacks in America, and they're coming, and Trump is going to be overthrown in the next 2 months. That was 2 months ago, basically to the day of October 1st, which is the 100-year anniversary. The 100-year anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, and the literal grandchildren of the folks that financed the Bolshevik Revolution out of New York and London are now bragging, saying Bolshevik 2 is launching. I told you over and over again that I believe their November 4th launch terror date was a smokescreen for them to begin launching terror attacks in October. They will get successively more intense until you basically come punch drunk to them. Then they'll launch their main attack. Here's the other big news. On Saturday night, Sunday morning, they released OJ just 20 hours before the attack took place, so all the media would come and be in place to cover this event. The whole thing has the hallmarks of being scripted by deep state Democrats and their Islamic allies using mental patient cutouts. I'm Alex Jones. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 58 dead people, 515 plus injured, many of them critically. Obviously, the death toll is going to go up. We should be praying for all the victims, the survivors, and their families of the Las Vegas massacre that ISIS has taken responsible leadership in. Every time Islamic State has taken credit for something, it turns out that they were either directly or indirectly involved. The police say that they knew the 66-year-old shooter and that they were well aware of him and that he had converted to Islam in the last few months. I've been pointing out that the left doesn't want to take the full blame when they launch violent attacks in America. And so what they do is they then claim they've converted to Islam so they can then basically put it on Islam so that when they take full political power after the violent revolution, they can then just double-cross Islam. But they want to use Islam as the cutout so Islam gets the blame and in many cases is the actual muscle for them to take control. Then they just double-cross Islam. On Friday, I did the entire first hour of the broadcast warning you over and over and over and over again that I don't believe the revolution's coming on November 4th like the Democrats and the communists and Antifa are saying. Across the country, you've seen the videos, the articles, it's been the national news. They say they're going to go violent and start shooting and killing police, conservatives, whites, you name it, and that white genocide needs to be carried out, even though most of them are white. And those videos are all over the internet. And I pointed out that Antifa is just the cover. They're the useful idiots paid for by the big tax-free foundations. They know exactly what they're doing at the leadership level, but not down lower in the actual rank and file. I've been saying on Friday, and I said on Saturday and on Sunday, on the Sunday broadcast, but I did special transmissions on Saturday as well, warning that this was coming and warning it was imminent and saying I believed it would come around October 1st and that the main assault would come in the middle of October. They want to have a bunch of little assaults, then medium-sized assaults, and then some larger assaults, I also predicted up front, so that when the huge mega assault comes, the population doesn't react and has basically been conditioned into accepting it. That is a military tactic. There is so much to cover here, but we saw terror attacks in Canada. We saw terror attacks in France by people screaming Allah Akbar with ISIS flags, car attacks, truck attacks, stabbing attacks. We saw the attack last Sunday at the Christian church by the black supremacist Muslim who had just traveled to the U.S. in the last few years as a, quote, migrant. He said he wanted to kill whites and he wanted to kill Christians. Now you see a country music festival, and stereotypically that would be whites and that would be conservatives, being attacked, and you've got 500-plus injured and 58 dead. Scores of those 500-plus injured fighting for their lives. The reported gunman was firing out of what looks like two different rooms or two adjoining rooms out of two different windows, and witnesses reported seeing muzzle flashes coming out of both windows. We're going to play some of that audio and some of that video here in just a moment. But understand this, Hillary's trying to blame the Second Amendment for this when they're the ones that have brought in the Islamicists and they're the ones that have promoted this whole Civil War atmosphere, and we've got, of course, other organizations, and we've got other groups like Saturday Night Live calling the president scum and a cracker and a racist Saturday, invoking just vicious, vicious, vicious propaganda in an attempt to cause a civil war in this country, claiming that the president ordered a stand down in Puerto Rico, even though there's been food there building up for 2 weeks, and the Teamsters are on video, Democrats saying they won't deliver the food. They won't deliver the fuel. They won't deliver the air-conditioned facilities. They won't deliver the air-conditioned 18-wheelers. And you've got the mayor refusing of San Juan to go to the FEMA and military meetings, and you've got Hispanic members of the military that live in Puerto Rico, colonels and others saying this is all a complete fraud. Our government is standing down in Puerto Rico to blame Trump. This is so criminal. But it's part of revolution. They're going all the way. They mean business. Let's go ahead and start playing some of these very, very shocking clips. Parental discretion is advised. The moment shots started going off during the concert, this is shot by folks in the crowd. Here it is. So he still went for about 20 seconds till he ran off the stage. That is biblical, where you can hear the bullets being fired. You can hear the report of the what sounds like a semi-automatic rifle, but it's being belt-fed. It's being cranked through. That's why it goes at different speeds, and then suddenly everybody starts running after the music stops. Here is a clip of once the crowd started running.
I need to take a video. No, you're good. Everybody is down.
Everyone just laying down. There's only one exit.
Babe, you're okay. I promise.
Let me tell you something. These NFL events
We can't go yet.
and these rock concerts that are open air, they are Islamic kill centers. Just like the Islamists that blew up all the little teenage girls over there in England. And you notice normally they target a gay nightclub, or they target, you know, a young girl, a rock band pop venue. And I pointed out, why do the Islamists go and attack the liberals that are the folks letting them in? And the media said that I was blaming the victims. No, I simply said, why do they then go to the gay nightclub when it's the liberals and folks that are saying, let the Muslims in? The media spun that I was saying it was the gays' fault and that they staged it. I never said that. That's another MSM lie. And they'll lie again. I asked the question, why does the left bring in the very groups that are trying to kill you? Well, now we see what appears to be the first Islamist attack on a conservative group or a conservative venue. And there'll undoubtedly be liberals, conservatives, you name it, at a country music venue. But generally, it's about 80% white, 15% Hispanic, 5% black. I've been to many country concerts, and that's what the video shows. It's about 80% white. And then a lot of Hispanic folks like country music as well, because it's basically the same culture. And then you've got this white knight, this individual up here reportedly doing it, but we don't know that's the case. His brother has come out and given an interview to Reuters and says he didn't have guns, he wasn't into guns, he wasn't into hunting. But they've buried that. And instead, I've got the Daily Mail exclusive. He was just a guy, something happened, he snapped. Las Vegas shooter brothers, his family is dumbfounded at massacre and have no idea of the motive. But then you read later, and the media is trying to say that he was into guns, so all gun owners are to blame. But I have his brother here in the transcript with Reuters saying, no, he wasn't into guns. But let's expand on that. We have witnesses who were there. That video is coming up after break as well, who said, listen, there were Hispanic folks, Hispanic couple, saying, you better get out of here. You're going to be dead. You're going to die here tonight. Now, a lot of folks were saying, yeah, they were messing with people. Because if somebody tells you you're at a concert, you're about to die, you call that messing with you. Well, no, it's not messing with you. They were warning you to get out. Woman celebrating 21st birthday was in front row, says another woman came during the show and told everybody they were going to die to get out, and they thought they were messing with them, but they were so spooked out by it, they left. So that's coming up as well on the other side. But first, we're going to play the clip from Friday, just 6 minutes out of the first hour, where I laid out and predict that October is when they're launching their revolution. The NFL taking a knee, the statues being taken down, Charlottesville, all the different preparations, all the race baiting, all the calls to kill Whitey, all the media hate, Antifa admitting they're planning this big attack. I don't think it's coming in November. It's coming in October. This is the 100th anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. So the Democratic Party, the former deputy director of the CIA, the former deputy director of the FBI, Michael Moore, Al Gore, they've all been on TV saying a violent revolution's coming in the next 2 months. That was 2 months ago. Now Antifa, funded by the very same groups, says they're preparing to start killing people en masse and triggering a Charlie Manson-style race war. Not in 1969, but in 2017, the 100-year anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution that U.S. and British leftists publicly financed, ran, and commanded. Then later they gave them the atomic bomb. Same leftists did. But here, ladies and gentlemen, it was October when they took over, and they see as the big victory, the capital, Moscow. But right now, let's go ahead and go to a clip of a woman during the biggest massacre using firearms in U.S. history. We still don't know exactly what happened, but ISIS is taking responsibility. The brother says his brother wasn't into guns, didn't own guns, was a leftist. So we now know that. They're trying to blame right-wingers, of course. That's what fake media does. But we have the video on Infowars.com. Concert goers were warned they were all going to die. And here's one of those witnesses.
Yeah, so there was a lady who pushed her way forward into the concert venue, into the first row, and she started messing with another lady and told us that we are all going to die tonight.
Do you know why she was saying that? I mean, was this after the shots were fired, or?
It was about 45 minutes before the shots were actually fired, but then she was escorted out by security. We just barely made it back into our room whenever it started.
And I mean, were you thinking, oh my gosh, this woman told us that before we left?
Yeah, I thought it had a positive correlation to it. Like, obviously, she was telling us that in either to tell us, to warn us, or to tell us that we were all going to die, and she was part of it. So
okay, so they want the description of this woman. Describe to me what this woman looked like.
Her and her boyfriend were both Hispanic. They were probably about shorter 5-footers, probably about 5'5", 5'6". They just look like everyday people. Just.
Can you tell us anything more about them, what they look like? Why were they escorted out? Were they escorted out because you were feeling uncomfortable about what they said?
Yes, because she had been messing with the lady in front of her and telling her that she was going to die, that we were all going to die. So they escorted her out to make her stop messing around with all the other people in front of them, but none of us knew that it was going to be serious.
That's Sky News out of the UK. You'd think that clip would be all over the news here in the U.S. It's not. And other witnesses said the same thing. Was the lady a maid or something in the hotel, or security? Or maybe they were staying in the hotel and they saw people getting guns ready. How do you sneak these guns in there? How do you do this? Whole thing's very suspicious. And it's the timing and the calls for revolution and the left saying they're going to do it. And they just attacked the church last week and a bunch of stuff in Europe and Canada. It's happening. It's not, oh, is Alex right that a civil war is starting? They're doing it, trying to get us to do something. Clearly, here's where I warned of this on Friday in detail. They are preparing a violent overthrow sometime in November, October. Now, why do you think the communists are suddenly uncloaking themselves? Because after growing under the floorboards, they want to look like a legitimate government when they take over and when they call for the racial war and when they call for the uprising. This is a playbook, and it's from them. They're saying this is happening, and they're being allowed to prepare and gear up for it. What will it be in a month? What will it be in just a few weeks? What will it be? It snuck up on us, hasn't it? It's the October Revolution that stretched into November and December. It's the 100-year anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution. We're here. It's happening now. This is real. What are you going to do about it? It's the big question you've got to ask yourself. Because they mean business. We have to hold our fire, but we have to be prepared and know they're coming over the line. And we've got to be on target and ready. And everybody's got to start packing. Because when they strike, it'll be like fire ants, where they crawl up over your legs. When they get in place, one of them that's leading, and it's all genetically engineered, by Mother Nature that way, stings you, releases a pheromone, and all the others sting. Once they get in place, they communicate by pheromones. And it's the same thing. They get all over you, they get in place, and it's going to be boom. You wake up one morning, and 300 cops are dead. You wake up, and talk show host and members of Congress are wiped out. Trump Towers from Chicago to New York are on fire. So the police don't think they can respond. But there'll be something that happens right before that. A mass shooting at a school, a bombing of a federal building, maybe more, pinned on a right-wing patsy who's a listener of this show. That's why they're putting us all over the news and putting us on Comedy Central with all their drooling viewers to go, here's the bad guy, here's the terrorist. Get ready for this. When it all happens, it's his fault. He made his followers do it. So they false flag, and they'll blame Alex Jones and Donald Trump and Matt Drudge and Rush Limbaugh. And even a lot of other conservative talk show hosts will kind of halfway go along with it because they'll think, oh, my competition's about to get shut down. No, idiot, you're about to get shut down. Bolshevik style. That's how it worked. The Bolsheviks said, we've just seized Moscow, but if you turn in your guns and work with us as some of the other political parties, we'll let you rule with us. And just help us get the white Russians. Just help us get the Christian Russians. Just help us get the pro-Tsarist. Just help us get that one group. And then you're going to be fine. And then they just killed people with each new group of moron traitors that lowered the drawbridge. So we're here. And I'm sure of it, that this whole NFL thing was the activation of this. And my sources concur with that. It's not gone well for them. So if there's a big terror attack that they blame on patriots or Christians or conservatives or independent media, that's what they want to shut down, not if, when, you'll have 2 or 3 days of them hyping it to get people to a fever pitch so they can make it look like it was organic. But by the second or third night, you've got to be, if you want to stop these folks, you got to be basically eyes and ears. And they're going to hit at night. They're going to start at about 10 o'clock at night. Just like they did. You got to be waiting on them 2 to 3 days after. I don't think they're going to change their operation. This is too tried and true. You got to be waiting for them, ladies and gentlemen. Because they're going to try to overwhelm the police forces in cities they don't control first. And they're going to lay them out. They may also do it in cities they control because they know the police chief will be involved in it and will order basically a stand down. So they're going to make their move. That's where everybody's on edge. And we've really tried to fix this as peacefully as we can. And if the Attorney General, who's completely surrounded, I know, doesn't move on these forces, you need to understand the Antifa idiots are just going to be the cover for the squads and some of the other specialized groups that they're going to be using to decapitate. We'll be back. Stay with us. If you just joined us, we got 58 people dead. The number keeps climbing as folks succumb to their injuries. Unfortunately, pray for the victims, pray for the dead, pray for their families, pray for America, pray for the world, because we're entering that great time of global crisis. North Korea just had a ship seized with massive high-tech weapons, trying to sneak them into the Middle East. Trump sending another aircraft carrier. Our Pentagon sources are they're strongly looking at hitting North Korea very, very soon. Islamic State has taken responsibility as of about 2 hours ago for the terror attack that is the largest gun attack on a civilian crowd in U.S. history. Witnesses, multiple witnesses are reporting that they were told to get out. They were soon going to be killed that night. I played a clip earlier from the Friday show covering a Paul Joseph Watson article, who's joining us here in about 3 minutes, where Paul chronicled local news, police reports, communist announcements, Antifa announcements, Democratic Party announcements, and videos that Steven Crowder undercover folks got. We, of course, a month before had, just showing all the multiple sources, Doug Hagman, who we should probably get on later today, or during War Room at least, if he can't come on now, with his undercover sources saying they're meeting, they're preparing gun attacks, bomb attacks, attacks on crowds, of stabbings of conservative groups. This is so important. And Matt Bracken said 6 months ago he would imagine the leftists would attack a football game because the NFL is seen as leftist now during a future NFL crisis. I remember 6 months ago, we got to find the clip. He said, I imagine when the next football season comes up in the late summer, early fall, somebody would then arc in, even outside the stadium, arc in a couple thousand rounds, killing and wounding a bunch of people, and then claiming it's a right-winger with right-winger InfoWars-type literature left the scene. And we war-gamed that this morning. We think that's probably the next big scenario. But we've talked about rock venues, country venues, churches for whites being targeted or Christians being targeted. You saw the Sudanese immigrant invader attack last weekend and shoot 9 people, killing 1. The media celebrated that. We've seen Islamic attacks in Canada, Islamic attacks in France, and the Prime Minister responded by saying, quote, end white supremacy, close quote. That story's on newswars.com. You cannot make up the magnitude of this. But finishing up the last minute of the clip from the Friday show, we're re-uploading in full hour of that first broadcast last week so that people can actually see it and hear it for themselves, where I lay it all out, the 100-year anniversary of the Bolshevik Revolution, and the left saying they're coming to pick a fight. Well, you attack a rock concert or you attack a country music concert and you're a leftist and ISIS takes responsibility. I think they've done just that. But we'll war game every angle of this. Hillary is now blaming the Second Amendment. Here's the rest of my prediction last Friday. Attorney General, who's completely surrounded, I know, doesn't move on these forces. You need to understand the Antifa idiots are just going to be the cover for the squads and some of the other specialized groups that they're going to be using to decapitate and they think intimidate and confuse patriot government. But you better believe they're going to try to kill conservative Supreme Court justices. You better believe they're going to try to kill Judge Roy Moore, people like that. I mean, it's folks need to know they're coming for you. They're coming for you. October is only a few days away. They're saying their operation launches November 4th. That's probably a diversion. I think the attack's coming in the middle of October. That's just looking at all the pieces. I'd say look for middle of October, but first look for a new Charlottesville, much bigger, or a group of Charlottesville. That's going to be the cover for the detonation. See the full hour. Rob Dew's uploading it from last Friday's show to Infowars.com and Newswars.com right now. Now, Paul Watson joins us from London here in just a moment for the rest of the hour. But first, I wanted to get to this report of Matt Bracken, former Navy SEAL, counterterrorism expert, highly recommended by some of my Pentagon sources that are pretty high up as a real smart brain. He was on really marveling yesterday that the attack hadn't happened yesterday. Well, it did come hours after he was on. So here's Matt Bracken last night on the Sunday show. I mean, Matt, this is everything you've been warning about for a couple of years, but you said as Antifa politically loses, they'd get violent. Now they're just, I think, the cover for more serious teams and more serious operations. I see preparation for revolution against America by Islamic and communist forces everywhere. It's crawling out of the woodwork here in Austin.
Yeah, it's true, but we're still in the battle shaping phase where there's going to be a civil war. I mean, there's no avoiding that. The train is coming down the track and the bridge is out. But the question now for the left side is shaping the perceptions of who started it. Once this thing kicks off and it's just total kinetic mayhem, then pretty soon it'll just be, well, we're in a civil war. No more free assembly, no more street demonstrations. That'll be banned. Any groups of more than 5 getting out, that'll just be banned. It'll be outlawed. But who throws the first blow is critical to shaping the opening stages of the Civil War. So what the left is trying to do is shape either a false flag provocation, which I still think is most likely, probably somebody firing into a left-wing crowd, leaving right-wing literature at the scene. Either that or another Charlottesville type, mentally psychotic loser who will be turned into a guided missile behind the wheel of a truck, also to plow into,
well, you said that about 3 months ago. You said shooting into a crowd or running them over, copying the Islamic attack, it'll probably be staged, and they'll use that as the red shirt. But Trump came out and said, hey, both sides are wrong, and that ended up basically defeating their narrative because it came out. Then Pelosi was forced to admit they were bad. But I see them kind of already flushing Antifa ahead of the next big event so they don't get the blame. And now the left's going to use Islamicists as cutouts, or at least say they were Islamicists, so they then don't get the blame, but they're going to use that to come to power. Paul Watson has written an article where the left in mass is celebrating the attacks, just like they celebrated Texas being flooded, saying it was all white supremacists, from Charlie Hebdo to CNN. So, Paul, we're going to break in a few minutes, but what is your first approximation on this massacre?
Well, that it's absolutely horrific. I mean, the video coming out of it last night was absolutely chilling, Alex. The other thing is obviously this ISIS claim of responsibility, which There's this whole thing going around the internet, and we don't know anything yet. We don't have much information at this point, but people say, oh, ISIS claims responsibility for everything. Well, that's not actually true. And in fact, the Associated Press admitted it. They said, quote, ISIS is not known to have claimed any attacks to which it is not at least loosely linked. That's the Associated Press, not me, not Alex Jones. So a lot of people are out saying this has got absolutely no credibility. Well, it is from their official propaganda agency. The Associated Press reports they don't claim events that aren't at least linked to them in some way. We had the Edmonton attack yesterday, where it was a Somali migrant ISIS supporter who literally had an ISIS flag in his vehicle, ramming into police and pedestrians. ISIS did not claim responsibility for that. If they had claimed responsibility, everyone would have believed them. But now they're claiming responsibility for this, and nobody believes them, or at least most prominent people don't believe them, because they say, oh, they claim responsibility for everything.
Well, also, the brother, in an interview with Reuters, said his brother didn't own guns, but other media is just saying he did.
Well, they're saying that he had a hunting license, but there wasn't that many guns in his home, given the area, that it's a big gun ownership area. And his family said that he wasn't a gun nut, or he wasn't heavily into owning guns. So it doesn't really line up.
Have we found his political persuasion? Some are saying he was a leftist, but then we can't track the trails.
Well, we don't know. I mean, there's so much disinformation floating around, and there has been all day, that a lot of it's been proven wrong. But we know the crowd that he fired on, like this, the whole narrative doesn't fit that he was some kind of right-wing white supremacist, okay? He's got a non-white girlfriend. He's firing into a crowd which is predominantly white people. They're country music fans.
Yeah, he was probably a Saturday Night Live viewer. Stay right there. We'll be right back. Paul, this morning I called my Army Special Operations Command sources. I called some CIA sources. Again, thank you so much for joining us. So much is happening. I even cut off the intro liner. I'm Alex Jones. We're broadcasting worldwide. You may notice that for 6 months we've been telling our radio affiliates that we have a new clock coming out where we actually have more airtime than before, but it's the most popular talk radio clock out there, where the segments are 10 minutes long instead of 6 minutes long, 12 minutes long, and 18 minutes long. They're all just 10 minutes long. And even our stations are very happy about that. Again, Alex Jones, your host here. Biggest gun massacre in U.S. history. And I got an analysis memo by a high-level CIA individual, let's leave it at that, simply questioning the attack. The attack is very, very strange. I'm going to wait to put this out until the next hour, and I think I'm just going to also post it to Infowars.com. But everybody I've talked to that's worked in the CIA or is working at the CIA believes this is basically leaning towards a left-wing false flag attack. And we're going to be looking at every angle of this. They say, look at Operation Gladio in Italy, which was a CIA operation. And he said, so sadly, we have to consider the possibility this could be staged by the shadow government. And you think, well, logically, if it's hitting a group of patriots, then that would look bad on Obama and Hillary and the globalists. But that's not how this works. The media is all blaming the Second Amendment. And they also want to get right-wingers to go out and start attacking people or have the claim that there's going to be a revenge attack out of this. That's what I've been smelling. Paul Joseph Watson joining us from London, England. Paul, the reason all the evidence points at the left is they're the ones saying October Revolution, November Revolution, as you wrote last week that Drudge linked to. They're the ones saying it's about to happen. They're the ones saying go out and kill white people. White genocide's good. They're the ones that have Islamic attacks happening every day now in Europe, the U.S., and Canada. So you look at the season this is in and who was hit. And as you were saying before the break, this guy wasn't a white supremacist. He was, you know, his Filipino girlfriend and reportedly was like a liberal and didn't have a bunch of guns. What do you think, Paul, as of right now?
Well, I don't know. I mean, that's the problem. Everyone wants to confirm their political biases as to who to blame, and it causes a lot of disinformation. Like, I'll give you an example. There's a video at an anti-Trump rally, and it's a guy dressed in pink with a pink NASA T-shirt, actually wearing a pussy hat, as they did at the Women's March. And everyone on the internet right now is claiming that this guy is the shooter. Now, in a different video clip, it looks a bit like him, but you can't tell because the picture's not high quality enough. That's the real shooter on the right, the guy on the left. The picture's not high quality enough. But there's another video in which a woman calls him Steve. So I don't know, make your own mind up. To me, it doesn't look exactly like him.
But let me say this, Paul, because the left always lies and puts out disinfo. We don't counter them that way, but a lot of the public's sick of it. So if they're going to make stuff up, well, then the Patriots are going to start doing it too.
Yeah, and there's been a lot of that today. You've seen originally the wrong person was being named, and in fact, other websites report on that because it was, I think it was the former husband of the woman that they were searching for. He was a left-winger, but he wasn't responsible for the shooting. But people jumped to conclusions and named him as the shooter because they wanted it to fit their narrative. Now, that is as bad as someone like Hillary Clinton, who literally came out and said that we should put politics aside in a tweet, and in the same tweet, in the same sentence, blamed the NRA, and then went on a whole rant about how we need to ban silencers. Okay, you can watch videos on YouTube. This is probably a fully automatic gun responsible for this massacre, if not one that was modified to become fully auto. Now, I'm not a firearms expert, but there's a ton of videos on YouTube which show that those silencers, if you use them in a fully automatic weapon, literally will melt. But it has nothing to do with that, and yet she's hijacked it within hours to push that political agenda, while in the same tweet saying put politics aside. Absolutely despicable behavior. And of course, they're the same ones who come out after every Islamic terror attack, Alex, which are more prevalent, especially in Europe now, and say, let's just carry on as normal. Oh, but when this happens, when it fits your agenda, they want laws passed within minutes. So there's no intellectual consistency whatsoever. We don't know who's responsible. You know, it could turn out to be it wasn't left-wing, it wasn't right-wing, it wasn't an Islamic terrorist. It was just a mindless act of evil. It does happen sometimes where you just get mentally deranged people who are hopped up on whatever SSRI drugs. You know, the Batman shooter, he claimed he was motivated by a movie.
All right, let me stop you.
He wanted to become the Joker.
Let me stop you. We've got breaking news here, Paul Watson, that's absolutely critical, absolutely key. I have gotten this. No cameras, please, guys. No cameras. This is from a law enforcement source. And the information is the news is lying. FBI HRT did the hit on the guy, and they found Antifa information in the room and photos of the woman in the Middle East. So he did not kill himself. The FBI hostage rescue team killed him because he was firing on them. So he did not want to be taken alive, and reportedly he did it. And it was Antifa crap everywhere. And other things I'm not supposed to mention. That is directly from the hostage rescue team, by the way, Paul. And I'm going to delete this information now. Keep going.
Well, obviously, that's huge. That's huge if it turns out to be true.
Yeah, hey, Paul, this is from high-level CIA, right here. Let's do it directly from, and this is from the hostage rescue team. You know I don't make sources up. Go ahead.
No, all I'm saying is that I'm going on the information I have, and I don't know.
No, absolutely. I'm just saying this is big breaking news. This is huge. In fact, you go ahead and take over the next 4 minutes. You host. I'm going to run in here and get with the writers. Go.
All right. Basically, we've had the biggest mass U.S. shooting in history. Again, they say it's a fully automatic gun. Hillary Clinton's out within minutes on Twitter, politicizing it, exploiting it, the very thing that she accuses the right of doing on a routine basis. She tweeted out that we need to put politics aside, while in the very same sentence, she complains or politicizes it by blaming the NRA, by blaming silencers, which it's her political agenda to have banned. You go on YouTube, there are videos, there are firearms experts who have said the same thing. You put a silencer on the end of a fully automatic gun, it will melt. Nobody's going to do that. It's pointless. It has no connection to this attack. Yet Hillary Clinton immediately chose to make it about that. Of course, you've got the calls for gun bans in the immediate aftermath of this attack, as you see in every attack. The Pulse nightclub massacre last year, which was carried out by an Islamic terrorist who said he was doing it in the name of ISIS, whether they were directly behind the attack or not. The media ignored that. Once again, they made it all about gun control. So, of course, unless the weapon was purchased before 1986 as a fully automatic firearm in Nevada, and in fact, I believe across the entire country, it would be illegal anyway. If it was a modified semi-automatic gun, it would be illegal anyway. So, again, criminals and terrorists will find weapons, whatever the law is, because they don't abide by the law. We saw that in Paris with the ISIS massacre back in November 2015. Strict gun control area, Paris. The whole of Europe is, especially in the major capital cities. Of course, they obtained semi-automatic weapons and massacred, what was it, over 200 people. We went to Molenbeek. We reported from Molenbeek. You can get a semi-automatic weapon on the streets of Molenbeek if you have the right connections as an Islamic terrorist within hours for €500. Belgium, complete gun control as far as I know, at least very, very strict. Certainly semi-automatic weapons are completely banned. So again, it makes no sense. We have terrorists stabbing people in France almost on a weekly basis now. We had another attack in Marseille yesterday, killed 2 women. They use knives. Do we ban knives? So again, the big speculation right now, as we delve deeper into this and as more information drips out, and it is dripping out on a minute-by-minute basis, was ISIS involved, at least at a distance, in this attack? The whole claim from prominent experts, from non-experts across Twitter, is that ISIS claims responsibility for everything. People are making jokes about it. Not true. They don't claim responsibility for everything. Are there some ragtag wannabe Islamic terrorist groups that claim responsibility for things that aren't anything to do with them? Yes, but not ISIS. They have an official propaganda agency. That's why it was reported widely in the media. And they got from that propaganda agency that ISIS was claiming responsibility.
And Paul, isn't it, because you're on this more than I, isn't it true that ISIS, one of the few things they're actually honest about is when they do an attack, like they said they did the chemical attack, even though Obama didn't want them to say that because he wanted to blame Assad. I mean, generally, when they say that they did an attack, they did it, right?
Well, yeah, and the Associated Press admits that. They don't claim links to attacks which they're not at least loosely linked. That's what the
That's right. Well, listen, I just got this from the people involved in the hostage rescue team, because in the FBI, they use military people for that. We have directly the guys that were there, that he was an Antifa guy. He wasn't even really ISIS. They were just using that as a cutout. Okay. This morning, I called my Defense Department contacts, my Justice Department contacts, my CIA contacts. I didn't have time to call all my contacts. And they just got back with me, some of the sources 3 hours ago, some an hour ago, but some just 10 minutes ago, saying, listen, we have folks on the ground in the FBI hostage rescue team, and for those that don't know, that's military, U.S. military, embedded. And there was Antifa crap everywhere. And photos of her in the Middle East and a bunch of Islamic crud is the words they used as well. And that he put up a fight, fought to the death, and they killed him inside the hotel room. So the media reports that Las Vegas shooter killed himself after massacre are not true. But the big news is he was covered in Antifa crap, and it's now confirmed, and this is also what we're told, that this Mary Lou, his girlfriend, there's photos of her, Mary Lou Danley, in Dubai. So let's put that on screen. Let's scroll down. Let's show her in Dubai. So again, while we're doing that, let's go back to Paul Joseph Watson in the 4 minutes we have left to break this down. But we're getting even more intel from our sources inside law enforcement. Paul Watson, this is just astounding.
Well, the other thing that's not clear, Alex, is this guy's supposedly a lone wolf. The woman who they were searching for has already been released, and they're saying that she's got no connection, right? So how do we explain eyewitnesses who are at the concert, and this is on video, we posted it, it's on Infowars.com, who said they were warned by a woman who they described as looking Hispanic that they were all about to die tonight. Now, if that's true, and this is someone who was at the concert interviewed by a mainstream news network, then he has at least one accomplice.
And she was interviewed minutes before this woman's identity or her looks were even out there.
Yeah. So we're going to have to wait and see. But the bottom line is the left's explain. They don't even care anymore. Even if it turns out to be some Antifa guy, they'll probably still just claim it was a right-winger and then just forget about it. I mean, remember Pulse? They denied that was even about Islamic terrorism, despite we had the transcripts of the guy saying this is for ISIS.
Paul, they said that I said it was a false flag and that the people inside deserved it. I said the people inside didn't deserve it. Why, and why do liberals support Islam when they target gays and others? The media totally lies about everything, and they do it over and over and over again. I said the false flag was them letting the Muslims in and protecting them, but the terror attack was real.
It's incredible. You got Vox coming out today with an article or reposting it. White American men are a bigger domestic terrorist threat than Muslim foreigners. So immediately they exploit it to advance their racism. You had Trudeau of Canada yesterday after an Islamic terrorist, Somali migrant, injures 4 people, could have been worse, blames white supremacy. He actually blamed white supremacy for an Islamic terror attack by a Somali immigrant. We love our Somalis. So it's absolutely insane. Now, whatever the evidence, Alex, they'll still use it to try and bolster their narrative.
We love our Somalis. We love our Muslims, too. Oh, they're so good. Oh, they're so sweet. But on top of it, oh, and the whites saw evil kill them. I'm so liberal. There's video of him right after another Somali attack saying whites are the problem. This is a religion of these people.
Exactly. These are the same people who, after every Islamic terror attack, say, how dare you even link it to Islam? You're saying all Muslims are terrorists. Well, nobody's ever argued that, but that's what they say after every terror attack. Oh, we must just carry on as normal after this one. No, we need gun laws now. We need to ban all white people. That's what some on the left are tweeting out today. They'll use it to advance their virulent racism. Oh, but, we love our Somalis. There was an attack in Tennessee last week, which would have been even worse than it was. It killed 1 person. Nobody's even talking about it. Nobody even knows about it. It was a Dylan Roof-style attack, but the culprit, again, was a black migrant.
That's right, Paul. Incredible job, as usual, from London. I'll get right back to the next hour and let you get back to your work. Ladies and gentlemen, we're into the 2nd hour, and we've had this gentleman set up for several weeks. He was very hard to get, very busy fella. A few weeks ago, his story was linked on drudgereport.com, and one of the top stories of the week. Zero Hedge reported high-ranking CIA agent blows whistle on the deep state and shadow government. He's been reportedly working with the former head of technical operations, who actually ran it, the actual technicals, the actual operations of the NSA, William Binney, who's been in studio with us several times and, of course, is a frequent guest. He's been a high-level, probably one of the most high-level whistleblowers ever to Congress and others, and was basically persecuted for following his duty in the Constitution. And he is joining us now to break all this down. But what a day to then be able to actually have him on the broadcast with us, because I'm not going to go over his whole bio, but not just on the end of the CIA that does the analysis. He did that too, but actually on the end of the CIA that does the protective stuff and also the offensive things, and was actually a trainer, high-level trainer as well for the CIA armed components of the CIA. Kevin Shipp joins us for most of this hour. Again, I'm not going to spend the whole time going over his bio, but a lot of publications pointed out he's one of the most high-level CIA whistleblowers ever, exposing the shadow government that is then taking over the deep state and really exposing more of the architecture of that deep state. And I was wanting to talk to him today about this biggest terror attack using firearms in U.S. history, 58 dead, 500 plus injured. And already the Democrats are saying that it's a white male and that they're the problem. They didn't even report on the Sudanese Muslim that shot 9 people, killing 1 last week, who said he was doing it because he liked Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And of course, we had Matt Bracken, former counterterrorism with the Navy SEALs in the Middle East. And he said, I'm predicting in October they're going to launch terror attacks, probably on big events or sports stadiums, to get mass casualties to kick off their October Bolshevik Revolution Part 2. Our story was linked on Drudge on Friday, where Paul Watson showed all the videos and links to Antifa and others saying in October, November, they're going to launch a nationwide violent overthrow of the government, pointed at Trump. And then you've got former deputy director of the CIA, counterterrorism head, Phil Mudd, actually saying the president will be dead within 2 months. And then Al Gore said that on the Late Late Show. And then others like the former head of the CIA, Brennan, also that same week, said that they're moving to remove the president outside of impeachment. And then we had congressional sources on that who were told he will be dead, he will be physically neutralized. So this is just incredible bombshell. Then I've had other CIA sources on, and they say that's preposterous. That's all a bunch of weak talk. They want it. They're not going to get it. And that Trump's got the good side of the deep state on his side. Again, Kevin Shipp obviously can't get anything classified, but he can get into, as a citizen, his basic gestalt view of this. So thank you so much, Kevin Shipp, for your courage and for coming on the broadcast during these incredible times.
Thanks for having me on, Alex.
Where would you like to start with what you've witnessed, the deep state, what we just saw in Las Vegas?
Well, this, even in the context of the deep state, which is the secret intelligence apparatus that we know essentially runs our elected government behind the scenes, and that's the Congress, the judiciary, and even the president, and that's what I'm kind of exposing recently. This attack today is very, very strange. Any way you look at it, this was an average 64-year-old white male with no criminal record. He was an apartment owner with a pilot's license, owned 2 airplanes, basically Joe America. So far, his brother described him as an average person who's not into firearms, never owned that many guns as they found in the hotel room. Now, he claimed he just allegedly snapped, but it's clear that this was a pre-planned attack, and this group, at least in my view, was specifically chosen. His hotel room was filled with guns, including several long guns. The attack itself almost sounds like a military automatic weapon attack, and we have to ask, where did those guns come from, especially the ones found in his room? And Alex, the thing that I think is really strange here is the target was a concert of the group that represents really traditional America. These were patriotic, God-fearing Americans. This group is the pro-Second Amendment, pro-Constitution, anti-New World Order group of Americans, the same group that Obama accused of clinging to their guns and their religion. So we're still awaiting all the facts, especially regarding to this female that's involved, which is strange also. But the concern is, Alex, we've seen our government sadly engage in false flag events in the past. And a classic example of this is the CIA Operation Gladio in Italy, where the CIA staged false terrorist attacks, made it look like the Italian government did it, and actually killed several people. As I personally...
And that's been declassified.
Correct.
That's been classified, yes.
Yes, it's been declassified, so much so after I read all the facts, I actually endorsed the book about it because it was so accurate. I think there were 2,000 footnotes in that book. So coming out of the intelligence side of things, both operationally and analytically, I was forced in the context of this attack before to examine 9/11 itself and some of the evidence involved there, which also pointed to the shocking possibility of a false flag itself. So kind of changed my entire worldview. Now, I know how the shadow government operates from the inside, how it controls, how it alters information, how it manipulates Congress. So I know that there's a very dark side of that whole thing. In the upper levels, many CIA people down in the lower levels are very, very good people, but this goes on up in the upper compartmented levels. So
exactly, from my sources, Kevin Shipp, that this is a civil war in the deep state, and that you've got Trump as a beachhead, at least partially, trying to get control of the shadow government so he can finally clean out the deep state. And so that's how the civil war is basically happening inside the government. It's now spilling out through MSM into the general culture.
Alex, you are exactly right. This is a deep state. So far, it's been a character assassination of Donald Trump by the deep state. And these are deep state operatives that go across several administrations. John Brennan, acting director of the CIA, Mike Morrell, James Clapper, Robert Mueller, who, if we remember, was behind, after 9/11, the warrantless searches by the FBI. So he's part of the shadow
government. It's his protege, Mudd, saying they're going to kill the president.
Right, that's right. And I think they haven't been able to, quote unquote, assassinate him in terms of his character yet. I am absolutely convinced the shadow government has every intention of taking out Donald Trump because he is beginning to question their activities. This is the first time a president has ever stated that he is going to scrutinize specifically the actions of the CIA and the NSA.
Trump's the real deal. It's not that he's even perfect, but as a man, he's trying to be president and trying to really help the country. I mean, that's what I see.
I agree with that. And we haven't seen an attack on a president, especially by the shadow government, since JFK. It's like a thunderstorm in Washington. I've never seen anything like it.
Wow, Kevin Shipp, again, high-level, former CIA, getting into your whole bio, commanding large operations, huge training groups, in the field, analysis, you name it. Are we winning this war? I think we're really winning. Their whole NFL thing failed. Their propaganda failed. They're trying to derail the hurricane responses failed. The Puerto Rico sabotages failed. And I think that's why they're getting more and more desperate now. And finally, I think we can really look at this event. This is as strange as a $3 bill or as a purple duck. I mean, something's going on here.
I agree with you, Alex. And I think because of programs like yours and others on the internet, they're now for the first time coming out and exposing what specifically the shadow government, and of course it's connected to the deep state, many times runs it. But now because of programs like yours and others, this information is now being brought out into the public. People are seeing it. It's being verified all over the place. The shadow government now knows, and the New World Order also documented, they know now that it's out. People are seeing what they're doing. They're even seeing it in the context of the attacks on Donald Trump. And the shadow government, I think, is at the highest levels terrified for the first time. Not only are their actions being seen, but now they're being questioned, and people know, they're beginning to know what's going on.
Wow, Kevin Shipp, high-level CIA whistleblower. Please stay with us. This is powerful, folks. Spread the word. We'll be back. All right, folks, I didn't do one plug last hour because I'm so focused, but we've got to fund our operation. We're trying to expand as much as we can. I'm probably going to go to Vegas today. I was planning to go to Puerto Rico. We're sending people there. There's a lot going on here, and we're trying to expand, build a new studio. We've hired like 10 new people the last month. I want to hire 20 more. We're going crazy because there's so much to do. And I've also gotten prices down with a lot of our suppliers. That's why usually stuff was 25% off. Now I can do 50% off because we've gotten some of the prices down 20, 30% for ourselves and gotten 20% more in each bottle of our great healthy nootropic. That means brain pill, a bunch of great natural compounds where, you know, it's 8 at night, you still got to keep working or whatever, or you want to mow the yard and you're tired or whatever, boom, take a Brain Force. It's totally natural. Some of the stuff in its prescription in Europe, it's only $19 right now, ladies and gentlemen, normally discounted to $29. And we've done it 40% off before, never 50%. But I told them to do a huge shipment, 50% off Brain Force, InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. And by the way, it took us years to come out with a nootropic because I tried a bunch. We were going to private label. We finally came out with our own because this one doesn't make me mean. It works really good, doesn't make you feel like you're on drugs. It's really good. But it's different than coffee because, see, coffee quits working for me if I've got to work 20 hours or something. I've already been doing that a couple of days, which I've been doing lately. And so, boom, about 5 o'clock, don't take the coffee, drink a bunch of water, take a Brain Force. Rob Dew runs off these things. So, InfoWarsStore.com or 888-253-3139. That's the new big special. Now, Kevin Shipp is our guest. You'll want to read this article from a few weeks ago. High-ranking CIA agent blows whistle on deep state and shadow government. Let me just ask him, this is a guy that ran major operations and dealt with things like this. Why are they saying they want to kill the president or he'll be removed outside of impeachment? Is that to make the splinter groups in the shadow government and in the deep state sound more powerful to the other shadow groups so that the different factions go under them via intimidation? Because the reason I say that is I'm not in some government agency, but I've been threatened by people that act like they're friends. You know, I think Trump may actually get removed, and it might be good for you. You've done good for the country, but maybe you just need to not make a big deal about it when it happens for you and your family, Alex. You know, stuff like that from pretty serious people. So what do you really think's going on here with all this brazen, treasonous, third world type banana republic talk we're seeing all over the news?
Well, first of all, when anybody in the intelligence community or someone that's held a position there previously says something, you need to take it seriously, because they don't say these things unless they're thought out and they've got the support behind them. So when they make these bizarre statements, it's like coded messages that if this doesn't change or go our way, this is how far this will go if necessary. And for them to put that out publicly is at the very least chilling.
So they're saying, hey, Trump, you better roll over or you're dead.
That's basically what they're saying. You remember, you've talked about this before, what Chuck Schumer said, if you cross the intelligence community, the CIA, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. How in the world could a government official make such a chilling statement? So, yes, they have every intention, in my view, having come from the inside, and I was in counterintelligence, they have every intention at the higher levels, the compartmented levels, because they have a lot to hide. They have every intention of removing Donald Trump with any means necessary.
And I agree with you. It's not being done out of strength. They're cornered rats.
That's right.
Well, I don't want a dictatorship. I want a free republic. I've always been Mr. Anti-Police State. But when you have a shadow group trying to organize a coup and saying they want to end the free press and saying they want a ministry of truth over who can have a radio show or a website, that's now being pushed by NBC, ABC. When they're talking about converting America to a pure oligarchy, an authoritarian system, I think we have to really openly talk about what we're going to do, not in a threatening way, but saying we're going to back the president and good people in Congress and the state governors to try to organize something public to move against this. Or, I mean, what do you do when they're organizing something like this? Just sit there and wait for it?
That, I think, Alex, that is absolutely the solution. That's why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I've had assassination threats. There's an international video out there calling for that. What we're doing is exactly right. You know, cockroaches love the dark. The shadow government operates in the dark. But when you turn the light on, they start to scramble. And what we're doing is we're turning the light on the shadow government specifically. And it's been around, as we know, since 1947 when it was created. But we're seeing the shadow government start to move, if you could imagine, against an elected president of the United States. So the solution is to come out just like this, publish this, speak out, cause a social media storm, get people out there talking about this all over the place, shed the light on this so the cockroaches will start to scatter.
Since you mentioned it, here's Schumer when the president was president-elect. It was like a day or two before he was sworn in. When the former head of the CIA, the head at the time, said, watch your mouth, and Trump said, you know, you better watch yours. This was Schumer's response.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you...
So that's the clip you're talking about, Kevin.
Yes. Now, Alex, when you think about it, that's a government official. What he just said is not only shocking, but it's beyond that. That the CIA has the power and is willing to take out an elected president of the United States if he crosses them. And that hasn't happened until JFK. Trump is the first president to question the shadow government, the operations of the CIA, and there have been many, many, many dark ones. I mean, this is darkness at the highest levels. He's now questioning that, and these statements that they're making have never been made before in history since JFK like this. This is a thunderstorm going on in Washington between the elected government and the secret shadow government intelligence agencies behind them, the elected government. We're seeing a war in Washington between those two.
From people I've canvassed in the military, including, you know, the folks that actually do the killing and all the other stuff, and people even up into higher levels of different agencies, CIA, you name it, they're completely ready to go against the shadow government and against the deep state elements that are globalist. And even at the highest level of the globalist combine, a lot of them are defecting over to the Americana side. And so I think the globalist faction really ought to look at the situation and back off, because Trump signaled that if they'll just let us turn the economy on and just not wreck the country as they'd been planning, that they could probably scrabble off into the dark. But they're so arrogant, they want full power, or they don't trust him. Because the president signaled that he's not going to throw them all in prison. They just have to stop what they're doing. But they don't want to be sent like Napoleon to some island. They want to continue the power.
And you're right. And we have to remember that any sort of secret structure, especially one that is powerful and well-funded, they tend to draw narcissistic personalities and psychopaths and that kind of people. They thirst for that kind of power, especially in secrecy, and that blends up into government, into the highest levels. And I can tell you, lower down in the CIA, there's a lot of patriotic people that are really against what is happening against Donald Trump. I talk to them all the time. So they're out there, and a lot of people in government are outraged by what the higher levels of the shadow government, the deep state, and some of these globalists are doing. They're outraged.
That's right. And Kevin, stay right there. When we come back, I want to ask you, we're going to fix this peacefully. But if it goes into physical and they're coming after you, everybody, at a certain point, these folks have to know, even if there's no command and control, folks are coming from them. Because if they want to just start running around killing everybody and playing God, America is going to fight back. And folks know I don't brag or shoot my mouth off. I'm just saying it's a fact. The universe is a two-way street. Even if they say it isn't, we'll be back. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, NBC News, the Associated Press, and others are reporting that he was a huge gambler and that his father was a convicted bank robber and thought by the FBI to be a psychopath. But then he did own a $400,000 house, owned several airplanes, and was the manager of a retirement community, and people said was a nice guy with no criminal record. I have sources who are connected, let's just say, to the FBI hostage rescue team or the anti-terror squads, which really is just military, for folks that don't know, with the FBI over them. And that's not a secret, but it's not popularly known. And these are good sources that said, you better get your reporters out of there. They're giving them orders to pull triggers up there with the whole Bundy thing in Oregon. We got our reporters out, and a week later, they shot them up in a car. I mean, it's just, it's crazy. So these are real sources, and I'm not bragging, but this is dangerous stuff, okay? This is dangerous stuff for myself, for our guest. I mean, he talks about the threats he gets. I'm not going to get into the issues. I'm perfectly safe, and there's no threats, and everything's happy, and everything's good. But Kevin Shipp, one of the most high-level CIA whistleblowers ever, he's been quietly trying to do it for 5 years, with William Binney and others, but then he's been persecuted for it, so he's getting more and more hardcore because they're getting more hardcore. I mean, should I play the clips of Brennan on the Aspen Institute with Wolf Blitzer saying he'll be gone in the next few months? It's, you know, it's non-legislative. It's not, you know, we've got a group. It's not impeachment. We've got a group. We're getting ready to do it. Or just all of them, or Al Gore saying, well, he's bad, and the decision's been made to remove him. And they go, impeachment? Well, something else. And folks in Congress, they've gone around canvassing them going, president's going to be gone soon. You might want to go along with it if you want to be safe. You know, you're a good guy. Nobody's threatening you. Just you need to choose the side you want to be on. You notice that made Senator Rand Paul go from kind of not liking Trump to like, Trump's great. We're blessed to have Trump, because you threaten him. And I know from sources he's been threatened. He goes into the other camp. I mean, this is a very dangerous time, folks, to be alive, okay? So we have this new added information. I've got some points here. Again, as our guest was saying, this is the group that Obama accused of being bitter clingers, a country concert, mainly white folks, mainly Christians. I see this as a way to be anti-gun, be nebulous about why it happened, but then try to get right-wingers to go out and finally start responding to the attacks on the church last week and all the other attacks that we see the media hyping up. But I think it's too early to say, and I'm sure, you know, Kevin Shipp has more that he could tell us, but he's got a lot of sources, but other angles people should know about, sir.
Yes, and, you know, Alex, of course, as you know, and you're doing, we have to work through all the hearsay coming out and kind of vet our sources. There's information indicating that this man had connections with the precursor to Lockheed Martin, who we know, I've come out and mentioned, they're part of what I call the secret intelligence and industrial complex. So
the Skunk Works.
Pardon me?
The Skunk Works. Yes,
that's right. So there's a lot of things coming out about this man, and we'll have to sift through them all as they're all verified. What is really alarming and strange about this is the group that was targeted and massacred. This is kind of the core of Trump supporters. And I think what the higher levels of the shadow government don't understand is this is not necessarily about Donald Trump, although that's important. This is about the movement and the people that got him elected. So if they think that they're going to take him out and there's not going to be some kind of response by this huge group of millions of Americans who elected him based on what they stand for, I think they're going to be sadly mistaken.
I agree. Don't they understand with this demographic and the psychology, just like Hitler thought bombing London would make the Brits give up when at first they'd been against the war. Even after Dunkirk, they were saying, let's stay out of it because they'd lost almost, what, 1 million or whatever. And I think it was higher in World War I. I've seen just artillery corps monuments where it says 200,000 plus men, just one monument. So the Brits didn't want to fight, not because they were wimps, but because they already had a war with Germany once that went on, you know, many years. But as soon as Hitler turned his planes on to the general public, now they were ready for war. I mean, if they think this is going to make conservatives put their tail between their legs, they got nothing coming.
Yeah, that would be a very sad mistake. And this essentially, when targeting that group, this is an attack essentially on the Christian foundation of America and the Constitution, essentially that was derived from that. This is the core of America that they're attacking. We have to understand, Alex, as I mentioned earlier, that the people that arise to the levels in this part of the unelected government These are narcissists, and I remember when I was in there, the state of mind was, well, we're kind of at the top of intellectual evolution. We know better than your average person out there, so we can make decisions even behind Congress's back because they really don't know what's going on. So even though they don't understand that there's going to be a backlash because they think they're smarter than everyone else.
That's the exact idea when I've had them try to recruit me or family that I've had that's been involved in all this. It's this attitude of we're in charge because of social Darwinism, so nothing we do is wrong. And then successively the evil gets worse and worse until finally you say, I can't be part of this anymore, and they try to kill you.
Yeah, that's and of course that's to a certain extent that's what happened with me. I decided I'd had enough, and I came out and exposed this, and there's a litany of things that they did against me. And of course I realized that in a constitutional government, the only way to stay alive is to come out and be public. So I've seen them do these things.
That's what Jim Garrison said. People always ask why I'm still alive, because I'm in the spotlight.
That's right. I agree with you 100%.
I interrupted you, sorry.
No, I'm just saying that's what we need to do is we need to stay out in the public. There's always risk involved. Every great movement in history that has effectively created democracy and even ethics in governments and other things has started with a group of individuals, and in the case of the United States, even pastors of churches who decided to take the risk and take the lead and start standing up against these things. And the encouraging part is there's a lot of people starting to do that, yourself, perhaps humbly me, Pastor Rodney Howard-Browne, and others that have had enough and are coming out publicly and standing against this sort of thing and exposing it. And I think that's where the hope is, that there are people out there more than we know like that are not going to let this sort of thing happen.
That's right. And I've looked at the history. I've looked at this current bloodthirsty eugenics-based elite, and they're just a bunch of sociopaths, psychopaths, very elitist, very narcissistic, in love with themselves. It's worse than Hollywood trash, and they, of course, run much of that. And the cost is too great letting them continue to be in charge. Yes, it's dangerous fighting them, but it's absolute assured enslavement and humiliation, and it's pathetic, and it's not who we are. And people are hungry for this, and we've got a lot of friends the public doesn't know about from every strata of government. I mean, the Secret Service leaked the info to us that Hillary was collapsing every 45 minutes and had a black ambulance, and then somebody caught it on tape a month later. I mean, we have really good sources, and people say, well, there's no way because they'll go after whistleblowers. There's so many whistleblowers now leaking stuff that they can't go out. You know, people like you that were early on, yeah, they could try to destroy you, and sometimes they have killed people. But now more and more, they're facing the tide of history. And I know a lot of even their own operatives that are smarter, who are sociopaths, are still saying, you better back off, folks, because they're not going to give in. I mean, they better know. We're coming with torches. Nothing's going to back us down, and we're not scared. We're only scared of rolling over.
You hit the nail right on the head. There's that famous quote that I always like to quote. When people, by Thomas Jefferson, when people fear their government, there's tyranny. But when the government fears the people, there's liberty. And I think that's the point we're at now. People no longer fear the government. They no longer fear the shadow government. They no longer fear these reprisals. And when that happens, we're going to have a new civil revolution, I believe, bringing America back to its roots, back to its constitutional roots, and back to the freedom from the group of millions of people, and there's more out there than people know, that got Donald Trump elected. The people that love this country, that people have a moral and ethical basis. They're God-fearing, they're patriotic, and there are lots of them out there. They're not going to let this happen. And these personalities, and I know because I work with many of them in the higher levels, these narcissistic personalities are so, we call it Potomac fever. They're almost mentally sick, so much so that they're blind. It's called blowback. They're blind when they stage these actions. They come right back in their face and actually do the opposite of what they were trying to do. But see, these people don't think like we are. Some of them are narcissists, others are just plain psychopaths, and a person like that doesn't necessarily think logically because they think
that's right. They think about what's enjoyable for them at the point, not if they don't care about society, they don't even care about themselves really deep down. They don't think third dimensional, fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional. They think just one dimensional, not even two dimensional, and it's incredible. I want to ask you then what the last straw was for you to wake up, more on the deep state straight ahead, and more. And we're going to get into the fact that the last straw for many was their alliance with radical Islam. Well, Matt Bracken, who has predicted this whole thing with really eerie precision, because he did a lot of anti-terrorism when he was a Navy SEAL, for the CIA in the Middle East and other areas, but he'll never talk about it. Says, oh, I'm nobody. But he got highly recommended years ago by some of my sources. He's been saying he thinks they're going to do an attack on the NFL for really over a year. He says that's why they're making it political, to make it a leftist target. Then they're going to attack it probably with a high-powered rifle arcing the shots in. But he said they might have attacks on right-wingers first. So then when they attack the left, they claim it's a response to that to get a civil war going, not to bring the country down, but to basically force Trump to capitulate or as a smokescreen to kill him. Briefly, we have our new Made in America Richardson hats. They're my favorite hat. I had a store. They're really high quality, so I thought, why don't we buy these in bulk and have an InfoWars patch put on them? This is my favorite style hat. It's what I personally wear, and I spread the word with it. I meet like-minded people. I wouldn't wear it in a Democrat area. They may actually kill you, but, you know, that's part of exercising the free speech. That's what they've just turned up the ambient atmosphere of hate to. But you can also always just wear something like a Molon Labe shirt that we sell, and that just meets like-minded folks. But most of the folks don't know Latin that are leftists, so they won't attack you. But seriously, it has gotten to the point with the revolution in the country that it is dangerous to openly wear a uniform out in the open, like CNN is fake news. And, of course, 50% off. Never done that before, but we got a discount on this current shipment. 50% off on the Nootropic Brain Force. A lot of you love that, but we got to sell a lot of it to fund our operations, so get your Brain Force today. A lot of the other specials like Caveman, Bone Broth Formula, that's 50% off. That is about to end in just the next few days, so please take advantage of those. InfoWarsStore.com, InfoWarsLife.com. Now, going back to high-level former CIA officer Kevin Shipp, many publications say he's probably the highest-ranking CIA whistleblower ever. He obviously can't get into most of it because it's classified, and he's written a book, I forgot, a best-selling book from the company of Shadows. Tell folks where they can find you, Kevin. I should have done that up front. You're risking your life to bring us this information, and we should really celebrate people like you that have really served the country and served humanity.
Well, thank you, Alex. I tend to fly below the radar, so I have not brought up a website or thinking about that. I live in a location somewhere deep in the southern United States, so I try to fly under the radar till I come out in public and speak like this. They can find the book on Amazon.com, of course. When I speak and give signed copies, I actually built a code into the book and managed to get that through. That is in there, and so I primarily come out in shows like this and then in public with some security and speak on these things, and just I try to fly kind of little under the radar.
And by the way, we're not whining when we say this is getting dangerous. We want people to know the climate where if I go to Seattle or downtown Austin, they physically try to attack me, they throw coffee on me, they scream Nazi, and they've just got people into like a Nazi-like fervor. They always overuse the term Nazi, but Hitler got the brown shirts and the public into a fervor, and it's like I'm a Jew in 1939 Germany. I mean, they start flipping out. They're the most intolerant, crazed people. They've been totally manipulated, and you see the media, vicious, vicious stuff only intensifying.
Yeah. That's correct. And you asked me about my defining moment. You know, I was there during Iran-Contra, and I saw all of that going on. And some things, of course, I'll never be able to talk about if I want to stay a free man. But what kind of energized it for me was I was doing an international investigation, and I found out that the identities of our agents in foreign countries could be located easily by foreign intelligence services and others. They could identify our operatives in the field, and of course then they were open for assassination. I submitted that to the agency at several levels. My documents were repeatedly destroyed. I received phone calls on the internal system threatening me, telling me to drop it, and I would respond saying, "Excuse me, sir, but these are the lives of our agents at stake." That didn't seem to concern them at all. They destroyed my investigation from the internal server, and on it went. I went to an official outside the government, tremendous former intelligence officer, did a study globally, found out that it was even worse than I thought, that our agents could be identified and assassinated. So I received an award from that, but I, of course, had a laser dot on my chest. I was placed on a secret base, a second in command, and lo and behold, they asked me to come in and meet my new boss, and it was the CIA official that was rebuked by the intelligence community for putting our agents' lives at risk. He was now my boss. The house was broken into. There were chemicals painted on the ceiling. And the worst of it was my family started getting sick. Excuse me.
So you were put under his control to be soft-killed?
Yeah, I believe that is correct. Yes, the family was poisoned. My doctor's documents and things were destroyed, literally from the internal agencies.
Well, just so you know, I've talked to a family where the exact crap went on, and they weren't even blowing the whistle on stuff that went on in Iran-Contra.
Yeah, this is a system, and I document this in my speech. This is a system that they've been using for about three decades, and they use it on any whistleblower inside the CIA that comes forth and tries to reveal things. I have documented that exactly, the modus operandi, step by step, how they do that. They tried to do that on me, and that was it. That was the last straw. I said, okay, I understand what this system is. I understand this is not a patriotic organization at the highest levels. And I decided the best way was just to come out at quite a bit of risk and just reveal this publicly. So that was my defining moment.
Amazing. I want to play you a clip of the type of psychological warfare they're putting out. Just a small clip. The entire hour-long Saturday Night Live was calling Melania Trump a whore, calling Trump a racist, saying cracker, which is the equivalent of the N-word, lying about the response. So they're just trying to get the general public hyped up to get, you know, mental patients to go out and do this. And I'm experiencing it myself, so I couldn't imagine being the president or his family. I mean, this is unprecedented bullying at a galactic level. But here's the Mr. Shea is his pen name, I guess, the fake name, on Saturday Night Live, posing as a newsman, saying this. Here it is.
After the mayor of San Juan criticized the government's Puerto Rican relief efforts, President Trump attacked her on Twitter, saying the mayor of San Juan, who was very complimentary only a few days ago, has now been told by the Democrats that you must be nasty to Trump. Oh, really, Donald? You bitch. Was she nasty to you? How nasty? Are you shaking? You want to go smoke a Virginia Slim until your hand stops moving? This isn't that complicated, man. It's hurricane relief. These people need help. You just did this for white people twice. Do the same thing. Go tell Melania to put on her flood heels, get some bottled water, some food, pack up some extra Atlanta Falcons Super Bowl T-shirts, and write them a check with our money, you cheap cracker.
That's enough of them. Shut it down. I mean, that goes on for 5 minutes. By the way, we have a report up on Infowars.com, an exclusive from people associated with the hostage rescue team, which is also the armed hostage killing team, that he was shooting at him, they killed him, and that there was Antifa and Islamic literature everywhere, and that stuff about her being in the Middle East, which then also is broken in the news about the part about her being in the Middle East. So there is a lot of that. Plus, why'd they release O.J. Simpson on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, 20 hours ahead of the shooting, so the whole media would get there because he stayed in Vegas reportedly? The whole thing just, and I'm not saying they coordinated it all, but we looked it up in Vegas and then right outside in Reno. They don't normally release folks on the weekend. This is getting just this whole thing. I don't know exactly what's happened here, but it smells to high heaven in this whole climate where the Democrats are saying we're going to have a revolution, we're going to kill Trump supporters, we're going to kill Trump. Former CIA officer and whistleblower, Mr. Shipp, what do you say to that?
Well, as I said earlier, this attack is very, very strange. I think we looked at David Letterman's website this morning, and he blamed it on, essentially said, we've got to stop white privilege. This is falling right into the divisive narrative to split the United States in two, and I think probably foment a civil war to destroy the U.S.'s unity. So this whole thing, Alex, is so strange. I think everybody feels in their gut there's something about this attack that is really, really odd. We've got to wait for the facts to come in. But there are some things I think that are really peculiar about this.
I agree. By the way, like you said about Letterman, what about Trudeau after a Somali runs over a bunch of people yesterday? And then he says that white privilege, end white supremacy was his response. I mean, it's like cognitive dissonance, like they're saying 2 + 2 = 50, knowing it's wrong, but just letting us know that's the case, that when whites get killed, it's our fault. And I mean, I guess it's kind of a battle cry saying, whites are getting killed, you deserve it, end white privilege, we're going to kill your ass, like the head Baylor person over vaccines said, white people are the problem, we've got to kill them. And you go, where is this random stuff kill white people coming from all these powerful people? It's a psyop I can't even figure out. Man, I don't know what they're doing. Trying to make whites become racist or something? Like, I don't understand it. We're going to be back in just 70 seconds for a final 5 minutes with our guest. Then Matt Bracken, another intelligence operative and Navy SEAL, is going to give us the latest info. And he really knows what he's talking about. And we're just the organic American people standing up. So many people saying, people in the government, they go, we know some agency or group's funding you. There's no way you did this. I've been doing this 20-plus years, and I grew up around parents that were history buffs, and my mom has a degree in history, and then family that had been in the Army and been in other agencies, and would later just hear how evil the government was and how they're shipping the drugs in, and they got a program to sexualize the kids, and, you know, it's horrible, and they're kicking the good factions out, and you're like 5 years old, you know, hearing people talk about this stuff, and then you just grow up and you see it and you decide to fight it. So I studied InfoWar and how they operate, and I've done a half-assed job, but I've been doing it 22 years, one of the only people doing it, so now it's had a big effect. But now everybody's waking up. And Kevin Shipp's one of the highest level CIA whistleblowers ever. Listeners need to know, FBI source, just like we have this high-level CIA source, we don't make these sources up. Sometimes my source is the president, though they really try to keep him from calling me, and I've missed more calls than I've gotten. Vegas shooter found with Antifa literature, photos taken in the Middle East. I mean, that's directly from people. And now he looked it up. 2 cops reportedly part of that engagement in the hospital, and they say he was shot dead. He didn't kill himself, but for liability purposes, I guess they just say that. But the big thing they're mad about, this is from folks that have given me really good info, is that he had this literature everywhere and was all whacked out. Or was he set up? I mean, we don't know. It's all so confusing. All we know is the left is ready to blame conservatives, all white males, and Trump, and won't cover any Islamic terror attacks. In the last time we have, sir, what else do you want to impart to folks? And again, thanks for coming on.
Well, thank you, Alex. I think it's best to sum it up like this, what we're dealing with. There's a verse in Ephesians I followed for some time. It goes like this, for we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. So we're seeing this kind of spiritual wickedness in high places in government and in globalism, and these people will stop at nothing to accomplish what their goal is. And I want people to understand that the solution is programs like yours. The solution is people coming out like we are, and the solution is not to fear your government and not to fear the shadow government, but to come out using our constitutional freedoms and speak out and make this thing public.
Bottom line, you're saying sunshine, sunshine, sunshine.
That's right. That's it, right on the money. Sunshine is the greatest antiseptic, as they say.
Well, I've seen you do a few other interviews. You never even plug your book, but you've risked your life, and people should read it and know it and donate to the library afterwards. Again, tell folks about your book and how they get it.
They can get my book by going on Amazon.com. If they want to contact me directly, they can send me a Gmail at intelligencehour@gmail.com. That's intelligencehour@gmail.com, and I can let them know how to get a signed copy.
And from the Company of Shadows, I know you speak at a few conferences and things, and obviously for security purposes, you don't do a lot. Believe me, I understand. But it'd be great to have you to Austin. We've had Mr. Benny here before. And that was interesting. It was also interesting being followed to dinner. I mean, it's like a real James Bond movie. It's just crazy. But again, I think there's more of us than there are of them, just in the general public. Don't you agree?
I agree. I think there's much more of us than there are of them. And I don't think they realize the number of us that are out there. I think that's their biggest miscalculation.
And I think they've taken our kindness for weakness and just...
Yes.
I mean, people have really been pushed over the edge now. I mean, I just don't think they understand if they really have a coup of Trump, I want stability. I don't want a civil war, and I don't want to see a bunch of dead globalists. But man, I'm not dumb, and I predicted a lot of stuff. I guarantee you, they kill Trump or start a hot war. I don't care where they go. They're deader than a doornail.
They take Trump out, there's going to be a reaction, I think, and a big one.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for spending time with us, Mr. Shipp, Kevin Shipp. Thank you. And again, I want to get you back anytime you want to come on, or anytime. I mean, how often can we call you and get you on?
You can get me on anytime, Alex. I'd be glad to come down to Austin. Just let me know. You can go through Brent, my producer, and be glad to do that.
Let's bring you and Brent and the whole family if you want to Austin. Let's get you in studio. Hell, let you host the show a couple of days if you want. God bless you. Godspeed, sir. We'll be right back with Matt Bracken, who predicted it all. Stay with us. Well, less than 24 hours ago, Matt Bracken, 19 hours ago, was on air with us, warning that he believed there would be an imminent terror attack on a large gathering event like a football game or a rock concert, and that this would signal more attacks that would start happening as part of the October/November surprise that the Democrats have openly said they're going to launch to begin killing Trump supporters, killing police officers, killing members of Congress. They've had high-level Democratic operatives, even on CNN, saying, hashtag hunt Republicans. So this has all been testing, like a parrot tests its perch. Let me tell you something. I was there with 3 military guys who were all former operators, okay? And at the shooting range yesterday. And they see a Muslim man with 5 women in hijabs. Then I leave, and the same man leaves and says, hi, Alex, knows who I am, and more women come in hijabs. Our guys decided to stay there and watch. 2 more groups came in. They asked the folks, so they said, you ever seen this guy here before? And they're like, yeah, he's never come in dressed like this. He's never come in with other people, but here he is. And they basically said the biggest group, as I talked to them previously, they see coming in now are Democrats. And this is a really high-end place. And I said, multi-story, and I said, well, are they converting, waking up? And he goes, no. He goes, they got a Second Amendment right, too. He goes, no, our biggest group now is liberals. And they think a war's coming. And so everybody's just kind of like this when they're there. I mean, purple hair, you name it. I mean, it is, we're so beyond screwed. They don't get, yeah, see, you want guns for a bad government. See, we can have guns now. You understand why you want them. There's no logic. They just tune into Saturday Night Live and they call us all white supremacists and say we should all die. And then the president cut off aid to Puerto Rico. Total lie. It's been piling up for 2 weeks. And you see it. And now you see this attack. Now, I, of course, on Friday, laid out the whole plan. I said, I believe they're coming in October. I don't believe it's November 4th like they've said. Drudge linked to Paul's article where they're saying they're going to start killing everybody November 4th. I mean, imagine if Charlie Manson had hundreds of thousands of followers or millions of supporters, and he was saying everywhere, November 4th is the day of doom. The day of doom is coming, November 4th. We will march out and kill the conservatives and kill the judges and kill the police officers and kill the talk show host and kill the military. And we will go forth into the recruiting centers and we will go forth into their churches and we will kill them. And then the church gets attacked last week by the Sudanese and people get run over and killed in Canada and stabbed, Allah Akbar, in France. I mean, it's multiple times a day. Hell, before midnight passes today, will we see more attacks? I said to Matt yesterday in an hour-long interview, I said, I almost expect something today. It's October 1st. The October Revolution, that's when they really took Moscow. It's when they started to win. Knifemen yelling Allah Akbar. And now I got this from the same sources in the hostage rescue team, which is really made up of a roving group of military, not roving, rotating, that they went in with the police as well, and then he shot at him, and then they took him out. Now, even mainstream media, hours after we reported it, has the transcripts, and this is coming up at the bottom of the hour. Matt Bracken will ride shotgun with us. The 2 officers were shot engaging him in the hotel, up to the room, and that also that there was gunshots on the transcript before the detonation. That was my intel. It's pure bull. He was killed by the hostage rescue team after he shot officers, just what I told you hours ago. The first hour, then Kit went and wrote an article about it, and that there was just Antifa crap everywhere and Islamic stuff and photos of him and his wife in the Middle East. We then searched it, found out they found her on Facebook in the Middle East. So we're going to Matt Bracken right now. That's just some of the background. He'll ride shotgun with us for the rest of the hour. And then David Knight's going to pop in with breaking news at the bottom of the hour. But Matt Bracken, we're here. It's October. It's 2 months after Matt's on the road at a friend's house today. We appreciate him doing it. Here we are months later, and they're doing it. It's happening. I believe this is the signal of the new Civil War. They're attacking right-wingers, I believe, to then hope that they can then stage attacks against themselves and have it be plausibly believable that they're trying to manipulate us into a confrontation. And that's what my CIA, FBI, Army, and other contacts that I've called today believe, and the former high-level CIA individual who used to run major operations who I had on just in the last hour was saying. What is your analysis of this as a former Navy SEAL anti-terrorism expert?
Well, we don't really know yet much about this guy. There's a lot of conjecture out on the internet. I've seen the YouTube videos. You've probably seen them, where a guy that's supposedly Stephen Paddock in August was at an anti-Trump rally wearing the pink NASA shirt with the pink P hat. And if that's the case, then that would that would dovetail with what you're saying. But I've also seen that he was a hunting enthusiast and a pilot.
But his brothers come out and said he was not into hunting.
Okay, then that's a false report this morning.
Well, understand, I have sources that were there, not involved in it in the shooting, but were behind him, and they say that there was Antifa crap everywhere, and that his girlfriend was going to the Middle East. That's now been confirmed.
Yeah, if the guy was handed an AK-47, it takes virtually no training to lean out of a window and shoot at 30,000 people that are herded together. Your ladies wearing the hijabs at the gun range yesterday, all they need to do is learn how to put a magazine in, work the safety, and pull the trigger. They don't need to learn how to clean the weapon or zero the rifle, anything like that. At the type of contact ranges they would be talking about, it would be like in a mall or a concert venue. But this guy obviously had 20 or 30 magazines preloaded, shot out the window, and just fired almost straight down at the crowd. It really comes down to who is this guy. If he's an Antifa,
let me tell you, it's now confirmed. Exactly, it's now confirmed. His father, Patrick Benjamin Paddock, was a convicted bank robber who escaped federal prison, tried to run over FBI agents with his car, and then that he basically, the son is like a cop hater, and that's how he got into Antifa and got in with the Islamists. What do you make of that?
Yeah, it's certainly plausible. If the guy in the videos at the anti-Trump rally wearing the NASA shirt, the NASA shirt kind of dovetails with living previously in Melbourne, Florida. Visiting Cape Canaveral is one of the things you do in Melbourne. It's like the local, one of the big local tourist spots and employers, obviously. But
well, let's get down to brass tacks. Let's get down to brass tacks, Brack, and I'll let you give your analysis. You've been predicting just this. Just last night, hours before it happened, you said they're going to shoot into a stadium or something like this. But you thought it'd be against the leftist to get them all being the victims. Instead, it's a bunch of right-wing white folks, predominantly at a country music concert.
Right. I think the shooter is probably, if he is a left-winger, he's driven predominantly by rage and hate. So he hates these, deplorable pro-Trump, white Christian patriotic types. To him, they are the devil. So firing straight at them would be a way to instigate and trigger a civil war in the hopes that conservative right-wingers will retaliate in kind against, say, Antifa or Black Lives Matter. This is sort of the Steve Scalise shooting on steroids. This is somebody trying, doing his part to shake the tree, to cause more rotten apples to fall out, attempting to trigger Civil War II. That's the goal. And remember, the people that are trying to trigger Civil War II don't care who wins Civil War II. That's besides the point. If America is embroiled in a civil war, it will be taken out of action on the world stage. It will be a non-player. It will be completely inward focused for the next 5 or 10 years. I call Civil War II Bosnia times Rwanda. That's the type of
that's why China,
effects we're going to.
The EU, all the globalist groups are funding it to take this resurgence of America off the stage. They were planning to put Hillary in all along to finish that so that globalism could win, and now it's been sabotaged because of patriots in the general public, but also in what you call the deep state. Matt Bracken has been absolutely, totally on target. We're going to come back and get the next shoe to drop from him straight ahead. Then David Knight's coming up. Also have a hotline number I'm going to give out for any eyewitnesses or people with intel to call our line so we know more. Stay with us. This is the Info War, and the broadcast doesn't just end today. We have another broadcast after. Okay. Matt Bracken, former Navy SEAL, counterterrorism expert, best-selling author, is our guest for the balance of the hour. We've got breaking news with David Knight popping in at the start of the next segment. I've got some of the police transmissions that dovetail with what we were told. They went in. He was shooting at him through the door. They shot him. And that's on the transcripts. And then they lied and said that he killed himself so I guess the police and people don't get in trouble. But that's not the news. That's just a little tidbit. The news is there was ISIS and Antifa crud all over the room. And What this is with a lot of these guys is it's a big sex party. Because that's what the left does. And it's like, oh, you're a big celebrity. And they keep saying, when are you going to attack? When are you going to kill? Matt Bracken was just talking about that yesterday, of these videos of Hispanics saying to the white knights, you know, you're just full of crap. You know, whites are bad. Go kill whites. Show us what you're going to do. And that's what the media is saying. When they look at Trump, he blocked Puerto Rican aid because they weren't white. Totally made up. You know, but he gave it to Houston that was all white. 70% not white. Just crazy and just no news when a Sudanese goes and shoots a bunch of Christians and kills one, and he says, oh, because they're white. I mean, imagine if that happened to black folks. It'd be all over the news. This is how they're hyping this up to really be a civil war against white people. And that somehow that's going to be under the whole Marxist-Leninist system, that's what they've done in other countries, is foment that uprising. I don't see it working. I don't see it being successful, but they are building at a crescendo right now towards that in October and November. And notice I kept saying October's almost here and just building up to it. October 1st hit, ISIS attacks, Al-Qaeda attacks all over the world, attacks here. And then the left is everywhere going, white males, see a white male. You can see them even saying, you're going to be the white males, we can blame them. And then the fallback position is that, you know, that you're with ISIS because you joined them 2 months ago. That way, once our revolution takes place, you'll be a martyr in it, honey, and you're ready. I'm so proud of you. You know, too bad you were diagnosed with that brain tumor, but you're going to show everyone. So you can just see how they get this all set up. It'll be like Gran Torino. You're going to be a hero at the end, baby. Now kill those white bastards, okay? So, I mean, you can really see the mind control. You take your Halcyon. That's just a scenario. I might as well put one out here because everything points towards that. ISIS taking responsibility. They don't take responsibility generally unless they've really done it. Matt Bracken, what's the next shoe to drop? What do you expect? Because the left is calling for civil war.
Well, they're trying in every way that they can to instigate it. And again, the point is not necessarily to establish a communist government like that traitor West Point, now lieutenant, would like to see. The goal is just to embroil the United States in a bloody civil war, Rwanda times Bosnia.
So the globalists can take over and establish their communist EU worldwide.
Correct, and they don't even care if it works out that way or if it just works out as, you know, feudal vassal states, city states like we discussed last night, where they're the, you know, the kings of their little emirates and city states, and we're the peasants and serfs. But
yeah, they want to radicalize leftist areas, as they say in globalist documents, to be like EU globalist centers that have other centers. They just want control of theirs because they know they're being made a regional party, the Democrats, right. So they just want to fully cement that.
And it works completely well under the rubric of Islam. So socialists like Carlos the Jackal that turn into Muslims, they make the conversion very smoothly, especially men. I mean, you get to even have more wives, you can beat them. But in every way, you can justify, I'm still a socialist. I'm a socialist and an Islamist. So it works out very smoothly.
And then the feminists say, have sex with Muslims and let them put hijabs on you. This is sexy. And the women go, yes, cut my genitals off right. and put a hood on me. I'm liberal. Because as long as it's right. liberal, it's cool.
Well, but I want to take a minute and talk about what's happening, what the big picture is, what's coming next, okay? I wrote an essay, a long essay a couple years ago. It got reprinted very widely called When the Music Stops, How Our Cities Will Explode in Violence.
Ooh, that's interesting because the music stopped with the shooting last night.
Exactly. Yeah, there you go.
I read that essay years ago. Let's put it on screen. Go ahead.
Yeah, once the Civil War kicks off, it will turn racial. It always does. In the Rwandan context, it was black tribe versus black tribe, but between them it was racial. Hutus versus Tutsis. And even if you were a good-hearted Tutsi that lived with all your Hutu neighbors, or the vice versa, or if you were in Bosnia and you were a Serb living among your Croat friends, or you were a Bosniak Muslim living with your Serbian friends, once this civil war kicks off, your skin or your religion in Bosnia became your ID badge. It didn't matter if you had lots of friends.
It becomes the uniform because we've had people that whose girlfriends were Hillary supporters, and they literally made their husbands or boyfriends leave InfoWars to do it, and then they would go through Stockholm Syndrome where the males would then decide it was true and then begin making stuff up in their head.
Yeah, Stockholm Syndrome is very true, and it explains how women can become Islamists also. You know, like my husband's not beating me anymore. I love the guy. But what's going to happen is once the Civil War kicks off, so much of our infrastructure, our critical infrastructure nodes run through our cities. In my novel, Foreign Enemies and Traitors, where the New Madrid earthquake disrupts the Tennessee.
No, you just said it. It's just like Puerto Rico with the Democrats controlling the infrastructure and the trucks. They will hold off the aid and will hijack the power to hold the countrysides and other areas hostage.
Right. How many died directly from the hurricane? Not many. What's the big threat? The big threat is that the electronic dome has collapsed. You know, the electrical infrastructure life support dome has collapsed in Puerto Rico. The wind didn't kill many people. In the same way, in a civil war in the United States, bullets aren't going to kill that many people. But what's going to happen is people will start shooting at transformers. If I don't have electricity, why should the enemies across the river have electricity? Everybody gets a vote on the electrical grid in a civil war, in a modern civil war. Shooting at transformers is all it takes. And doing
so the answer isn't leftist cities. We've got to have commando teams, once this kicks off, take all the liberal cities and arrest them all immediately, or they'll sabotage the infrastructure. We've got to have the police departments work with us. I'm being serious. I'm not going to command and control this. I'm just putting the idea out. I'm sure the plans are. I know it's already been drawn up because the left drew it up to take over our cities under the John Warner Defense Authorization Act of 2007. I mean, I'm sure Trump and others have already drawn up the plans to seize control. They've got to do it.
We don't have the personnel. It's impossible. We can barely do Harvey, Irma, and Maria. So,
but what happens if military teams go in and take out the Democratic leaders?
I think that the cities will still burn because once anything disrupts
and
the
by take out, I mean throw their ass in chains.
But that won't keep the infrastructure running. You can put them against a wall and shoot them. It won't fix the EBT system. When the EBT system collapses, which it will in
no,
any
I
of
agree.
these
So why are these idiots going along with this? And they even admit they're trying to. They're such traitors. That's why the private elites have already fled the U.S.
Well, most of them. Remember, lemmings are not trying to commit suicide. I wrote something called "Trapping Feral Pigs" and other.
No, I agree. But the virtue signaling leftist mayors and stuff, they don't even know they're going to be left behind during this.
No, they don't. Like the lemmings, they don't know they're heading out to drown. They think that there is some rosy Che Guevara future, you know, but it's going to be hell on earth. It's going to be Bosnia times Rwanda. The power goes out in the cities. The infrastructure runs through the cities. The urban minority populations in the cities get a veto on the infrastructure.
That's right. Stay there then. Are they planning to launch this imminently? If you're a whistleblower or somebody that was there in Las Vegas and you want to call us, specifically if you were there and have intel, please leave the lines open. If you are a witness or have intel, like the lady that said that folks came in and said, you better get out of here, you're about to die, which looks very credible and matches the description of some of the other folks that people saw, I'd like to hear from you specifically. Please don't call the normal number. It's 877-789-2539. That's our in-house number, 877-789-2539, specifically for eyewitnesses, victims, or their families, folks in Vegas, first responders, law enforcement, military, you name it, 877-789-2539. Matt Bracken's our guest. And we're about to get David Knight to pop in with us as well. I'll probably ride shotgun some in the next hour that Jack Posobiec's going to be hosting. And then the War Room's going to go for 3 hours live after that. We've added 6 hours a day of more live radio/TV transmissions. I'm hiring a lot of other crews, a lot of other researchers, so that we can send people to Vegas, send folks to Puerto Rico. That's all in the works, but it takes money, it takes energy, it takes time. We sell products to do that. InfoWars Store, that's one word, InfoWarsStore.com. And quite frankly, I was up working late last night, and I've been up since 6 a.m., and I've been here at the office since 8 a.m. working. And I'm not tired, but I know as soon as the adrenaline's over in a couple hours and I get off air, that I'm going to be tired for a couple hours. Then I get energy back. But I'm not going to be tired because I don't even do it every day. A lot of folks take them all the time, take 2 or 3 of them. I just take one every couple days when I need it, sometimes a couple more if I'm really working 24 hours a day when I do Coast to Coast AM. I've got a Brain Force Plus, now stronger pill, 20% more caplets, powder caplets, you absorb it better in each bottle, 50% off. And by the way, I'm not doing 50% off because it's hard to sell. It is overall our best seller. It's been sold out for months. I'm doing it because we just got a giant shipment in, the biggest ever. It's so popular, and I want you to try it. So we don't raise the price and then lower it and say it's 50% off. Everybody that's ordered it will know this is 50% off. Our last biggest special was 40, but you bought so much of it that I can lower the price even more. In fact, theoretically, if you ordered enough of it, I could sell it for like $1 above what it costs if you ordered millions of bottles of it, but that's not how it works. But when you order thousands and thousands more bottles, I can lower the price as we sell more because I want you to have it. I want you to try it. I want you to experience it. It's $19.95. Leading competitors are $70 for a similar compound. We normally sell it for $40. It's $19.95 right now. It's got everything in it. So check it out for yourself. It's amazing. InfoWarsLife.com or 888-253-3139. 888-253-3139 or InfoWarsLife.com. I'm going to take my Brain Force right now. Again, thank you all for making this transmission possible. Now, Matt Bracken's going to split the time in this segment with David Knight will be hosting the rest with me coming up in the next segment. Matt will continue. But just briefly, Matt, the left says they're launching this civil war. They're going for broke now. They know they're losing. You've got martial law in Catalan over in Spain. You've got jihadists attacking every day. Clearly, all over the world, the left, allied with Islam's making its move. The attacks on a graph are going straight up. And so it's going to go from every day to every 6 hours soon. Like you talked about years ago about how it would just suddenly metrically increase. And I think we've hit that point.
Yeah, I think so, especially when you consider after the 3 hurricanes that the federal government is pretty much maxed to its limit. I mean, we've got 2 of our primary Aegis class destroyers out of action due to incompetence, signaling how our military has been so infected by the rot of political correctness that we can't even keep a destroyer out of the way of a
You just said
tanker.
it. Everybody's saying it. We have GPS that controls it. That we have saboteurs by Obama everywhere in the military.
Well, and they've just let in people like this lieutenant that's now at the 10th Mountain who was at West Point wearing Che Guevara shirts and nobody turned him in.
And who dreams of killing capitalists on his website.
And who had an Islamist professor at West Point who took this teenage boy to India for a field trip, vacation together, very suspicious. I would guess that they took an off-the-books detour to Pakistan during that trip.
Of course.
Our vaunted NSA and FBI, CIA never flagged this, never saw this. So under Obama, and probably even before then, we've seen the entire federal apparatus staffed with social justice warriors and traitors. So it's not like we're just going to flip a switch and rout the communists, because we now have these communists all through the FBI, CIA, NSA. This what's her name? Game show girl, the funny name from Atlanta that was
Reality Winner.
Reality Winner. What a ditz. How the hell did she get a clearance to be
Because it's
working
a
with
total infiltration for this takedown, but they meant to direct it with Hillary before so that it would have government cover. They don't have that now. That's why they should give up. But they're running a bunch of robots and dumbed down useful idiots, as you said, so they can't give up because fire ants don't have brains. They're still going to execute the operation.
That's right. That's right. And I saw Dick Morris on C-SPAN last night. It was recorded, I think, September 19th, talking about his book. I think it's called Rogue State. I thought he was dead on. They've left the stay-behinds. The Obamaites have left their stay-behinds.
They admit they did. They admit they did. They said they put a stay-behind network in the New York Times back in early January of this year. Let's bring David Knight in right now. Both of you co-hosting together. David Knight, host, of course, weekday mornings, 8 a.m. to 11 a.m. The Real News, it's David Knight's Real News is actually the name of the show officially. David, give us your breakdown on what you see happening here.
Well, you know, Alex, regardless of who the shooter was, regardless of what's going to be coming, what is happening immediately is Hillary Clinton coming out after gun control legislation that's in Congress right now. And this would be legislation to remove some of the controls that have been put on there. And, of course, we have the SHARE Act Part of that is the Hearing Protection Act. Hillary Clinton came out and she said they ran from the sound of the gunfire. Imagine if there had been silencers there, because part of this is to remove some of the restrictions, onerous restrictions that are on suppressors. And we understand that even in European countries where they have heavy gun control, you don't have to have restrictions on purchase or possession of suppressors in some of those countries. But Alex, what they're talking about here is also reciprocity. That's a big part of this Gun Control Act, to allow people to not face the kind of legal jeopardy that people who have already been vetted as concealed carry owners, if they travel to places like New Jersey, they can face very serious penalties. They don't know the state laws there. So after the Scalise shooting, there was a move for people to, we thought this was going to go through, yet the liberals see the Scalise shooting as something that enforced their hand in all of this, and we have seen them
instead of the fact for them calling for revolution and everything out of the gates before we even know what's going on, they're branding white males conservatives. I mean, it's like Trudeau in Canada when a Somali runs over a bunch of people, says we must eradicate white supremacy as a response, like saying you deserve to die, you're white. It's their weird religion, and it's white people pushing it.
Yeah, I want to point out to people that, you know, if you've got a war going on, there's three things that happen. They want to stop you from moving, they want to stop you from communicating, and they want to stop you from shooting. They want to put things in control that are going to control the internet, that are going to be more gun control. They don't want to take any of the gun control that they put on. They don't want any of that to disappear. And they're also going to be coming after our movement. These are all things that are happening now, and these are things that we need to be aware of. And this is the push to push this stuff back. These are firearms laws, and when they talk about the fully automatic guns that we use in this, and I sat there and listened to this in quarter speed, and I could count about 100 rounds in the first initial burst of this, coming very rapidly, coming very consistently. So they're going to come after the high-capacity magazines. They're going to talk about fully automatic weapons. But people need to understand that you have existing laws right now that make it very difficult, if not impossible, to get a fully automatic gun.
I think we've won the intellectual battle. Stay there, David. We're going to come back.
Yeah.
But, Matt, we've got 30 seconds till we go to break. What do you make of our sources that say that he was a basic Antifa and that he was connected to jihadis?
I'd say they got tired of waiting for a right-winger to kick this thing off. They've been trying to goad the right. But I'd say this guy just got tired of waiting and went after his most hated target, patriotic country fans.
And it's confirmed his father was a famous bank robber who did try to kill police and run them over with cars. And his girlfriend did go to the Middle East. And so that's exactly what my sources told me before it was even in the news. And I have sources that were there, ladies and gentlemen. Stay with us. We'll be back. Can you imagine the level of infiltration we now have by a bunch of cutthroat and multinational corporations that just want to get rid of middle-class populations? They're very cold-blooded about it in their WikiLeaks and their own documents. Then all the dumbed-down people that watch CNN or 60 Minutes or programs like Saturday Night Live that are so incredibly hateful. And you know they're destroying their own future. But they don't care because they hate America. David Knight, I'm going to let you finish up here, and I appreciate you working so hard. We're going to go back to Matt Bracken, but I'm going to ask you the same question I'm about to ask him. What would you call this period in civilization that we are currently in, David? What would you call this time we're in?
Well, I think we've talked about it before. I would go with the term that came up by Strauss and Howe. I would call it the fourth turning. I think history goes in cycles. I think we are well into this cycle. As a matter of fact, I would say that instead of waiting for some war to be the beginning of this fourth turning, I think it actually already started in post 9/11. So I think we're in a situation here where we have seen liberty lose its value to the American people. The promise of security is all that they need. And I think we've got a big fight ahead of us to keep people informed about gun control, because I think they're going on the offensive again. I mean, Hillary immediately went to this legislation that is on the floor now that we're trying to get pushed through that put some common sense.
Even though it's her scumbag, probably her type operative. I mean, it's pretty conclusive.
Right.
ISIS took credit. The guy looks like a leftist. It could be a setup, but it's all pointing towards a real guy.
We've seen them use false flags to get gun control through in the past. Fast and Furious, gun walker programs. That was their false flag. And I saw this when I was at the UN. We're covering their vote on the UN Arms Trade Treaty. They had already lost that false flag narrative. They had killed an agent, and it got exposed. And so then we had 1 week before they were going to have the vote at the UN Arms Trade Treaty. They had the Aurora, Colorado shooting to try to get the narrative back. They're trying to get
Isn't that the good news, that everything they touch blows up in their face because no one trusts them?
That's true. And every time we have a shooting like this, they come with both more gun control legislation, or try to stop gun control legislation being removed, and you have the people going out and buying firearms for their protection because of what they just saw in Catalonia, or because of what Kaya Jones told me. She said, look, we had an FBI agent where we were, and he said, I'm on my honeymoon. I don't have a firearm. Does anybody here have a firearm? Amongst all of them, they only had one firearm with 7 shots in it. They gave it to him. But that's what we're looking at and what we saw in Catalonia with the firemen and the local police not being able to protect the voters from the jackbooted thugs that were with the national government because they were outmanned, outgunned. We don't want to see that happen.
And it was bullies beating up women. We've got to keep the Second Amendment. Thank you, David Knight, host every weekday morning, 8 to 11 a.m. Central. Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Coming up, I'm going to co-host with Jack Posobiec for about 20, 30 minutes. Then he has a guest coming on. But we've got witnesses that talk about another middle school shooting in Vegas. George in Las Vegas, friends were there. The guy already dead, 2 bodies taken out. We're going to talk to him. Leo, Washington State, info on how Vegas shooting was planned. A lot of times they use drills as the covers. The people involved don't know. Then they'll send in a shooter, the globalists will, in the drill. Video published a month ago. So we're going to talk to all these callers. The toll-free number to join us is 877-789-ALEX. We've got 6 minutes left. So, Matt Bracken, you've got the floor to make other points as a former Navy SEAL and counterterrorism expert and author who has been predicting this with great precision.
Yeah, I think that Fast and Furious is spot on. That was a false flag operation. As far as the federal government doing a mass murder false flag operation, it already happened. It was called Fast and Furious. The intention was what happened, to rack up hundreds of dead Mexicans, blame it on the unbridled gun sales in the USA as a way of stopping so-called assault rifle sales.
And that even came out in the memos they got. Sorry to interrupt, but they even came out on CBS.
But even though it didn't work completely, there was no investigation. Holder, got condemned or, got sanctioned by Congress, but slap on the wrist, nothing happens. A strong memo, a letter in his file. He's making millions as in one of these payola lawyer gigs. But yeah, we've already seen false flags. A lot will depend on the honesty of the hostage team that went in. Are they all going to be deep state goons, or are there going to be some patriots in there? Because if they sanitize the scene, they could turn this guy into a right winger. I mean, he could have all Antifa literature in 1 hour, and the next hour it's all John Birch Society. So we really will depend on the patriotism of the first responders in that hotel room to see what really went on. And also we'll see a lot of the best investigation is done by the weaponized autistics on YouTube and 4chan and things like that, where people will do the work that the FBI used to do when they had honor and integrity, before they just became Stasi goons over the last decade, where even the honorable FBI agents aren't so honorable because all they care about is their paycheck and their pension. They keep their head down and don't say anything while they know that, their reputation is being trashed forever. So yeah, we're in interesting times. And you said, what would we call this era? I would say this is the pot beginning to boil over era. This is when the ground starts shaking and the weakly attached fruit starts falling off the tree. These are the Scalise shooter, the Las Vegas shooter. These are the most mentally fragmented among the loose cannons.
They're the canary in the coal mine for the Civil War.
Absolutely. And I want to mention, while I got a minute, and I've got a big audience, this book is free on Kindle right now. Matt Bracken, Castigo Key. It's $0. If you click it, it'll show that, we have some people interested in conservative fiction, not just, Hollywood, New York, liberal.
Sure, very important. Tell folks again, it's a free book. The latest in your series has come out. This is the book before that.
Yeah, this is my latest book, which has a 4.9 star rating, like 250 reviews in 2 months.
It's about Islamic sex slavery, but you can put a lot of classified stuff in there because it's a fiction book.
It's my counter-jihad novel. But yeah, we're in interesting times. Every day that I wake up with electricity, I say is a good day. One of these days, it's going to be Puerto Rico for all of us. It might not be a hurricane blowing the roof off, but we're going to wake up and the television doesn't turn on. And then after that, all bets will be off.
And again, that's their plan. They admit it is. Why are so many leftists, mayors and people that know the food's piled up 100 feet in the air at all the ports, why would they just join in on evil, not deliver the food, work with the unions not to do it, just to get political points? I can't believe there's so many bad people.
Yeah, it's very evil, but that's part of the reason why Puerto Rico was, bankrupt and had such a corrupt infrastructure already. Any money you put into basically a semi-third world place like Puerto Rico, most of it gets siphoned off to the bosses.
So it really is a morality. It's a morality tale.
It is, and there's no zoning. Everything is graft and corruption down there. So if you send $1 million down there to put up power lines, $900,000 is going to go into somebody's bank account, and $100,000 will go into cheap.
And that's why the head of the union said, we're not going to, until we get big pay raises and stuff, nothing ships. He's admittedly holding everybody hostage and proud of himself because the evil people in his union love it.
Well, just remember the difference between Puerto Rico and any city in America is that a hurricane did it to Puerto Rico. But what will kill people in Puerto Rico is the lack of infrastructure. We're all living under an electronic glass dome, like on a moon base. We don't see it because we just see the stars through the invisible dome.
But without it, we become completely dependent.
Completely, and just like people in life support in a hospital, we die. Some will die faster, some will die slower. But once this thing kicks off, I don't see how the cities don't burn. The EBT system fails. Food doesn't get delivered to the cities burn. The infrastructure running through the cities is cut. And then what? Well, it doesn't really matter to the people that want to see this happen what happens to America. The fact that we're in a civil war is enough. That's victory for them.
My gut tells me we're now there. Matt Bracken, enemiesforeigndomestic.com. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
People should go read his free book right now on Kindle. Let me just briefly tell the viewers and listeners, ladies and gentlemen, if you don't have storeable food, if you don't have basic generators, if you don't have firearms, you're crazy. I've got all that. What I don't have is a place out in the country. I have one with my parents, but it's too far away. I've just been so busy fighting. My wife got the farmhouse and the well and the solar and all the rest of it when she divorced me, which is fine. So my children are over there part of the time they have that. But I am now really understanding that I've been offensively trying to stop this, and I've got to scrabble around and try to just gear up more. I got food and water and filters and basic solar at my house, but I've just got to start spending some more time taking care of me. And you should do the same thing as well. Plus, it supports the broadcast. The best storable foods out there at the lowest prices. InfoWarsStore.com, 888-253-3139. And we have 50% off on many of the nutraceuticals. But a bunch of those specials like Caveman, 50% off, and others, and Secret 40% off. That's about to end. Brain Force is 50% off because people love it so much, and it's now 20% more each bottle. But I want you to experience it. It's been sold out, but I want you to experience it so good. So now 50% off. Please support us today. We'll be back with the 4th hour. Jack Posobiec. Please spread the links. The Blitzkrieg is here. The globalist revolution. Prepare yourselves, my friends, or submit on your knees. Something tells me you won't. This is the Alex Jones Show. I'm your host, Jack Posobiec, who's going to be co-hosting this hour. He's coming up in the next segment. We're taking your phone calls now at 877-789-ALEX. I see Hayden in Nevada says he's from the shooter's hometown. Says his father knew the shooter. We've got Leo in Washington State. He says he has info on how the Vegas shooting was planned. We got David in Las Vegas, says another middle school shooting in Vegas. I'm going to look that up. I couldn't find that. Brandon says it is a false flag, or is it a false flag? Is it the actual guy? We don't know. So we'll continue to track that. All I know is gun owners are being blamed, and the Democrats are calling for revolution and mass death. So anything that does happens on their watch, and it's their fault. I mean, hell, they say we're not sending any aid to Puerto Rico, and it's been there for 2 weeks, and the Democrats won't offload it off the ships. I mean, if they'll kill people there, you think they'll kill people here? They are the scum of the earth. Hayden in Nevada, you're on the air. Thanks for holding. Tell us what you think's going on. Give us your information from Nevada, the site of the biggest gun massacre, a person using a gun massacre in U.S. history.
How's it going, Alex? Well, I'm from Mesquite, and this morning when I woke up, my father, he works at the ER in the only hospital in Mesquite, and he said that he had recognized both of the people. So he doesn't personally know them, but he said that he had recognized them. And then another thing that I wanted to point out is I've been following the story since last night when, you know, it had officially come out at like around 10 o'clock. But I'd watched Dan Bilzerian's Instagram story, and if you listen closely, you can hear like that there are multiple. It sounds like there's stuck.
Yeah, I sent the Bilzerian clip to the crew. I don't know if they ever aired it. But when you guys pull up Dan Bilzerian's clip, you have to clip out where he says they shot her in the effing head. They just shot that girl in the effing head, but you hear it. It's like pop, 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 and pop, pop, and you hear, in fact, I meant to cover that this morning. I'm glad you reminded me. It's not just an echo. It sounds like there's multiple. That's what people were saying when all this happened. But what do you think of the Democrats waiting and immediately saying, give up your guns?
Well, you know, it doesn't surprise me. You know, I saw Hillary's tweets, and, you know, it's just disappointing, honestly, that, you know, at a time of tragedy like this, she immediately turns into her political agenda that she's trying to push on gun grabbers and whatnot.
Well, we're going to get that Bilzerian clip for folks. Actually, I have it on my phone. I sent it to you guys this morning. If you need me to resend it to somebody, I can do it. But our grief isn't enough, she says. We can't. We must put politics aside. Stand up to the NRA. I said, oh, don't. So first she's like, you know, let's not have politics. Thanks for the call. I can't really do the show because I got the audio still in there reading that. Thanks. Anyways, not for Hillary. Hayden, thank you so much for your call. Let's go ahead and take another call. Let's talk to Jacob in Las Vegas. Says his cousin was at the concert. Go ahead.
What's up, Alex? Hello?
Yeah, we had some distortion there. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes. Anyway, my cousin, she was at the scene of the shooting, and all of a sudden, just bullets were, like, just coming, and she didn't know what to do, and she just started running, and she got out there, and it was just, this whole thing was just crazy.
Well, what do you think's behind all this? What's your gut tell you, Jacob?
I mean, I don't know, you know, but a lot of people are saying this is a terrorist, or like, I don't know if it is, but I don't know, you know, the liberal media and the CNN and all this, they all twist it up, and it's like, what do you believe, you know? Like, crazy.
Well, is your cousin okay, Jacob?
Yeah, she's all right.
Well, God bless her, and God bless everybody that survived, and the 500-plus people, hard to believe that number, that are wounded right now. A lot of them obviously getting trampled. We'll find out more details as it unfolds. Leo's in Washington State has info. David is in Las Vegas. Brandon in Virginia, and many others. If you're a whistleblower, keep trying to get through to us. I'm not bragging. I mean, I'd have to be a moron not to see what was going on, but we did Friday do an hour broadcast on how the left is openly calling for revolution, mass killing of police, conservatives, and white people. And I don't want to be racial. It was mainly folks that weren't white, I'd say it. It's mainly white folks pushing it and putting it all out there. And I've just got stacks of the news here. When people celebrated, the left celebrated. It's on Infowars.com, PrisonPlanet.com, NewsWars.com. On Twitter and Facebook, celebrating the death. Oh, good, I'm glad a bunch of whites died. You saw when Houston got hit, most folks, leftists, thought that Houston was all white people, even though it was 70%, quote, minority. And they're like, oh, great, we'll kill the Nazis. And, of course, Charlie Hebdo said the same thing. CBS fires vice president who said Vegas victims didn't deserve sympathy because country music fans often are Republicans. See? Wow. Fired their vice president. I mean, folks, I've got stacks of news here where they're celebrating it, and then they virtue signal that I want to kill whites, like the head of the Baylor department over vaccines. She's a white lady, and she goes, the problem's white people. We need to kill them. This is on TV, and everybody's looking at her at a conference going, excuse me? She goes, yeah, whites, let's kill them. And more, it's like, what's the most extreme thing you can say in this Trump derangement syndrome era? Well, can we post that article immediately? Man, the CBS vice president fired for saying the whites deserve to die. And then you wonder why some weird leftist with ISIS doesn't declare responsibility unless they've done it, folks. They didn't declare it for France. They didn't declare it for Canada yesterday because they didn't know the people. Later, if it comes out they were with them, they'll say, okay, we declare responsibility. They said they've been communicating with this guy, and his girlfriend had gone to the Middle East, gone to Dubai, and I talked to the hostage rescue team folks, and these are good sources. They gave us good sources on the Bundy, what was going to happen there, and we warned people. They are saying that, no, he shot at them, they shot him, and now we know cops did get shot. That's all been confirmed hours after we first broke it, and that it was just Antifa crap everywhere, and, just drugs and liquor bottles and just another whacked out loon that just... When I walked in this morning at 8 a.m., he was already here. And that's Kit Daniels doing a great job, one of our lead writers and researchers. He said, Alex, let's look at him being on psychotropic drugs, because they'll take somebody politically who's already whacked out and put them into la-la land. So we're going to take more whistleblower or eyewitness calls or people that have family there in Florida, or there in Florida just got hit too. We're worried about Florida with everything there in Las Vegas, Nevada. We'll be taking those calls. The toll-free number to join us is 877-789-ALEX here in a few minutes. Then I'm going to let Posobiec take over. We got Chris in Vegas. We've got Leo in Washington State, Eric in California, David in Vegas, Brandon in Virginia. I'm going to go to those calls here in just a minute. But Jack Posobiec, I'm not surprised by all this. The Democrats are already saying it's white males. They're the problem. Simultaneously, though, because it was mainly whites being killed, they deserve it. While Trudeau, the Prime Minister of Canada, said after the Islamicist Somali ran over folks that, well, this is white supremacy. We've got to end it. So, it's going to make the Muslims mad. They've got to kill some white people. So weird virtue signaling to the Muslims saying, please don't kill us. ISIS taking responsibility. But while the Democrats simultaneously blame white people, I mean, I think we've entered cloud cuckoo land here. What do you think?
Yeah, Alex, we also saw Hillary Clinton, who would be president of the United States, but for Donald Trump, her first response, her initial response was to attack conservatives, attack the NRA, saying that they are to blame for this, that they want more of this. That's who's to blame here. Then she says, we don't want to make it about politics. But of course, she goes and in the same breath makes it all about politics. She says, thank God the guy didn't have a silencer, or else they wouldn't have been able to hear the gunshots. Well, Alex,
they're not called silencers. They're called suppressors, and they're loud if it's a rifle. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Right, so she shows she's actually disseminating misinformation. See, while in the midst of a national crisis, she's playing politics. She's disseminating misinformation to 23,000 retweets. Keep in mind, this could have been the president of the United States who's willing to throw half the country under the bus just to make political points at a time when there's still blood on the ground, while the bodies are still being counted and families notified. That's what she would have done. That's what the left wants. And you see, I don't see anyone on the left calling her out for this. I don't see anyone on the left disagreeing with these remarks. I'd also like to point out, where did she get her sniper knowledge? Did she get her background from when she was in Bosnia and when she claimed that she was fired at by snipers out there? That, oh, right, that actually turned out to be false. So this is somebody who's made a history of claims, but the left won't call Hillary Clinton out on this. We haven't seen them call her out on this. And so the question is, do they agree with her sentiments, and the same sentiments that we saw here from CBS, this executive who essentially was almost praising, I would even call that praiseworthy comments of what this sniper did in Las Vegas by attacking them because they were Republicans. Well, they deserve it. They got what they deserved, this type of language. Why don't we hear more people on the left calling for an attack to this? Alex, you and I have taken the peace pledge. We've taken an anti-violent pledge. We said we don't support violence. We don't support any type of it. We did that in the wake of the Steve Scalise shooting. We held a peaceful rally outside of the White House. But instead, the left, all they seem to do is egg on this violence. And
then they play dumb right after it happens and claim we did it. I mean, it's just the death of logic. They think we're not paying attention. I want to take a few calls and let you take over here. But sure. I mean, you just saw this Islamicist guy attack the church last week. The left is pushing this whole hog. They really are crazy.
Alex, it fits their narrative because ever since Trump was elected, they want to sow fear. and to discredit Trump, to discredit him from being the president. I also saw Katty Kay out of the BBC was saying, well, let's compare this to how Trump responded to San Bernardino. Let's compare it to how he responded to Orlando. And I said, wait a second, Trump wasn't president during those things. Why are you trying to tie those things that happened under Barack Obama's administration to President Trump just because he's president now? So what they're trying to do is create this sort of alternate reality where everything that's ever happened is Trump's fault, and then use it as ways to attack him, so they can move against him later to create those sort of conditions for when moving against the president, making open attacks against the president, calling for him to be impeached, calling for him to be taken out. This guy Joe Bernstein over at BuzzFeed made a statement today, and AR-15 became president. The left-wing BuzzFeed, which has been caught running false information about the president in the past. So you really have to start asking the question: is what is their final goal with all of this?
Absolutely. Let me expand on that.
Always make these things.
Well, let's talk about that final goal in a minute. But the people responding to her on Twitter, when the CBS vice president said she has no sympathy, they're like, yeah, this will make them start politically being anti-gun. They deserve this. This is just a sick group of freaks bringing in the Islamists, bringing in all these people, letting them radicalize folks. And then when it happens, they take no responsibility for the carnage they've done all over the Middle East, all over Europe, all over the world, and then they sit around after 1 million dead, after Hillary honchoed the Arab Spring, and get in our face like we deserve it. But remember, they blame me, saying I said that the attack on the young women at that music concert, that they deserved it. I didn't say they deserved it. I said, why does the Islamists keep attacking liberals and women and gays when those are the groups that are helping Islamicists? I was saying, why do they support Islamicists when it's the Islamicists that keep targeting them? And then I said, why are the Islamicists targeting their supporters? Because they know they're an unarmed population. Jack?
That's exactly right, Alex. And we've seen ISIS in the past call for attacks on, in the military, we would call these soft targets, right? So they would call these targets of opportunity, where there's going to be low security, it's going to be a gun-free zone, so there isn't going to be a lot of ways to respond to it. There's going to be ways to get away from it. So whether or not the ISIS claim is true, we do know that these are the types of attacks that ISIS has called for, has inspired, and has run. If you look at Paris just a little over 2 years ago,
when they attacked the Eagles concert.
Right. It was also a concert. It was also a public concert, a lot of people together. It was not a military target. It was designed to create mass panic.
And they know folks,
create hysteria.
And they know folks have been searched going into a concert, so it's an unarmed crowd they can kill. Wow. Ladies and gentlemen, this is simply amazing. We're going to come back and talk to David and talk to Leo and talk to George and others. And then Jack Posobiec's taking over. He's got a big guest coming up, Infowars.com. Follow Jack on Twitter at Posobiec. Stay with us. All right, I wanted to go to phone calls right now, and I am, but it's a main Twitter account. It's real video. It shows automatic gunfire, unmistakable, coming from about the 10th floor of the hotel that was overlooking the concert. That's coming up here in this segment of the next. We're posting it on Infowars.com. And then on top of it, we have the Getty's images of it being on the corner of the building where the shots were supposedly coming from on the 20-something floor. So this fits into the narrative of folks saying multiple shooters, multiple floors, and people saying, hey, get out of here. You're going to get killed. I talked to the folks involved, and they said, no, this guy was shooting at us. We killed him. He had Antifa crap and Islamic stuff everywhere. His girlfriend was going to Dubai. There's photos of that. Just on top of it, to add to the total weirdness, running down a dream. Tom Petty found unconscious in full cardiac arrest, now in a coma, according to TMZ. That just broke seconds ago. You guys tell me as soon as we get the video, please, off Twitter that I just watched 5 minutes ago during the break, please. And then I also want the Getty Images photo from our Getty account we have showing exactly where the shooting came from on the 24th floor. We have them all. Then let's go to them right now. Ladies and gentlemen, this is the footage shot by a Twitter account. We'll put that account on screen as well. You can clearly see that it is a muzzle flash in cadence with the gun going off. And it is not on the same floor. It looks about like 10-plus floors lower. If you count up the floors, it's at the 10th or 11th, maybe 12th floor. Let's go ahead and roll that with some audio, please.
This shit is...
I know there's some cussing. It's hard for us not to delay that for stations, but I'm going to roll it again. That is yellow-red. That is the flash. This shit is... It fits in with the cadence, and that is you've got the first basement floor, then you've got a main floor with a high ceiling, second floor, third floor, fifth floor, sixth floor. I mean, it could be the 8th or 9th floor. It is definitely not what they said the shooter was on the 24th. So let's put Getty images on screen. That's the middle of the building. It was on the corner of the building that the reported shootings were coming out of. Again, we've got the photo blown up. There you go. So that's the higher floor, they said. The 24th floor is where the shooting reportedly came from. We have video of the middle of it, and this is happening. Though that does look like 2 different rooms to me as well. Jack Posobiec, a naval intelligence, smart guy, patriot, one of the main guys helped Trump get elected. You're a smart cookie. What, and then we're going to calls, what in Hades do you make of this?
Alex, I'd be very, very interested to see. So we're seeing a close-up image of those 2 windows right there. As we know, in Las Vegas, as many other hotels, the windows don't open, so they would have had to be either been shot out or knocked out from inside. I'd like to see, though, are there any shots of the building today? Any pictures? I mean, not shots like that. Are there any images of the building today that show that area? Where it appears to be muzzle flash, and it appears to be mirrored up with what
exactly. If we have any listeners, they should go there right in the middle of the signs on the front marquee, right up in the middle where we saw those actual shots coming from. You just saw. I'll retweet it on Real Alex Jones. We need listeners to go down there and retweet those at us right now to do some human intelligence on the ground to see if those windows are shot out there, or there's a window that maybe it's an office area. It looks like they're able to flip up.
Right, so you'd be able to check that out, and to my ear, Alex, I was just kind of discussing this offline, but it when people were saying AR-15, that doesn't sound like an AR-15.
Sounded full auto, didn't it?
That kind of sound
heavy caliber.
It sounds like something bigger. It sounds like maybe like a 7.62, like a 240, something that potentially chain fed. Again, basing that just off of the sound.
No, it does sound like a chain fed. It's like pop, pop, pop.
Yeah,
pop,
it sounds
pop,
like
pop,
chain
pop,
fed.
pop, pop,
It's that rat-tat-tat. When you put I've fired an M4 at full auto in training in the past, and part of was trained by Special Forces. It doesn't sound like that rat-tat-tat kind of sound. It's more of like a buzzing, kind of like a bzzz.
Yeah, it's a bzzz, but the heavier machine guns are the pop, 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 pop.
That's the rat-tat-tat sound. So that's typically you're talking chain fed. Now, if that was something that was chain fed, it would be highly suspect how you could get something like that.
You can't get that. That's almost impossible to get, even with ATF tax stamps.
Get it into a hotel like that with all the security they have there in Las Vegas. Now, could have put it in as part of a Pelican case, and run it up to the room and said, hey, this is just stuff in my luggage. But that being said, clearly, take a step back. This is something that had a high level of planning. Those rooms with a festival like that in town, that's something that gets booked out weeks, possibly months in advance. So to have that specific room, have a key reservation there exactly when that thing is going on.
Well, usually hotels won't even give you, unless it's a special suite, the exact room you want. So
yeah, unless you're one of those people who's kind of got a lot of those, they have those sort of like loyalty reward programs for high rollers.
And reportedly he was a big gambler. What do you make of his dad being in prison and then escaping for bank robbery and trying to run over cops?
Goes to show you that this stuff might run in the family. He may have seen sort of his father's, lawlessness, his father using that as a way to make money rather than, going to work like a regular person and getting to the point of seeing where, hey, if I can just keep gambling, if I keep doing this to make money, that can be something that I can do. And then maybe if it was an issue of his gambling debts, that's what led him down this road that led to this criminal act. If the guy did have any, big debts with gambling. I saw that he tried to sue a casino at one point, probably 2012, where he had a huge dispute with one of these casinos. So it leads me to believe that there's a potential for that type of financial.
Absolutely. Let's take a call. David in Las Vegas, you're on the air. Got about a minute and a half. Thanks for calling. David, you said there's another middle school shooting in Vegas?
All right, so what happened in Pahrump, Nevada, it's about an hour west of Las Vegas. It was a false flag, and basically a convicted felon tried to drop off their child. So that was just a false flag. But what happened with the situation last night, I'm hearing from some friends that are cops that this guy had cameras set up for the lookout for law enforcement, so he's watching them. And he had 12 rifles that were modified fully, and he had 1,500 rounds.
Okay, well, I mean, all I know is the left's already jumping all over this. Thank you for the call. And blaming. Yeah, go ahead.
You know, all the hospitals here in town are full of people. Yeah, there's a lot of injuries now, and it's probably going to turn out being even worse because I have friends that were there, and none of my friends were hurt, but I mean, I have friends that are texting me that friends killed or there's a coach or something like that. And
well, God bless you, David. We should pray for everybody that survived, everybody that died, and their families. Jack Posobiec is coming up, and he's taking over. A lot more straight ahead. Then after that, we'll have the War Room for 3 hours live with all the latest breaking at Infowars.com.
Jack Posobiec coming back, taking over here in the 4th hour, joined by Lucian Wintrich of the Gateway Pundit. Obviously, a lot of news going on today. In the last segment, we were just talking about that interesting video that people saw where it looked like flashes were coming from the center of a building, the Mandalay Bay casino there in Las Vegas. Got a text message from someone who's in the area. They said that it actually is potentially a strobe light that's going off and that can be seen in different videos, and it just happens to be at the same time as the shooting in this video. It just happens to lace in, so that other angles of the video have it as a strobe light. That being said, it could also be a reflection. Of course, this is Las Vegas. We know there's a lot of mirrored glass there, a lot of weird light bouncing and reflecting going on. Essentially, the entire front of that casino is a mirror in terms of that glass. We're seeing a new video, a new shot of it here, and it appears that the only 2 windows that have been busted out are up there in the corner. So it's possible that this video may just be a reflection. That being said, we're taking in a lot of information. We're trying to crunch all of that. We're trying to break it all down. Lucian, in a situation like this, and this is a great question for my guest, Lucian Wintrich, who writes for the Gateway Pundit, what is the rubric? There's so much information these days with people on the ground, sources through social media, people who were there. Kaya Jones, conservative commentator and member of the Pussycat Dolls, was actually on stage. David Knight had her on this morning, which was incredible on Real News. But when you're taking in all of this information, how do you process it when it's coming in so hard and so fast like it is now?
I mean, listen, you and I, we're all in the business of breaking news, of following leads as rapidly as possible and trying to get the correct stories out there. That's the industry. You just it's rapid response, Jack. I mean, you know that. You've broken multiple stories.
Exactly. So there's times when you want to be right, you want to get the main story right, but you also have to have that level of skepticism, right? That sort of level of, could this be false? Could somebody be feeding me misinformation? Could somebody just be wrong? Could somebody be upset? Could I have a piece of information that I think makes sense, but I'm trying to fit it too much and it doesn't actually fit in the way that I intended it to? So that's one of the big things, because it's different these days, right? We don't just have the mainstream media. We have citizen journalism. We have cameras everywhere. We have cell phones everywhere. How has that changed the intake when these mass events happen?
I mean, I obviously Andrew Breitbart had that famous speech, right, where he said, everybody in the audience, raise your phones up. You're all journalists. You can all capture this. You can all report. And I think just from there, and that was what 5 years ago, 6 years ago at this point, it is his vision came true. We all are journalists, and as we're gathering information, especially from Vegas. I mean, listen, I'll get right into it. So Gateway Pundit.
So there was an issue, right? So there was a little issue, not a little issue. There was an issue that came up with Gateway Pundit. Something that happened. What happened? What time did it happen? Walk me through the situation.
Our Hong Kong. We have a reporter. We're international. We have a reporter in Hong Kong. Our Hong Kong reporter saw the story, was reading about the story, followed two initial tips, and we did. At 4 a.m, have the wrong name as the shooter for 10 minutes.
So there was a post that went up labeling. So they connected someone to the shooting. Right. How were they able to connect them to the shooting?
There were multiple tips that, listen, we're gathering news from everywhere, from Twitter to 4chan to the mainstream outlets. Two tips. The amount of tips we have just emailed are they're enough to keep you occupied 24/7. We were one of our reporters was following multiple tips. Multiple tips gave him this name. He published the story. He believed it was the correct story. It was taken down. Listen, it was taken down in 10 minutes, and I am flabbergasted that this is now a huge the mainstream media, rather than talking about potentially a white guy being radicalized by ISIS, by radical Islam, right? I mean, we've seen that before. That's what's terrifying, I think, about Vegas. That
the potential that it could be ISIS involved.
Yeah, that just a disenfranchised older white man can potentially fall into this trap of ISIS propaganda and shoot up a country music.
You heard the music festival,
yeah. That's disgusting. That's what the mainstream media should be focusing on. Instead of focusing on that, they're saying, oh, well, Gateway Pundit for 10 minutes at 4 a.m. Briefly had the wrong name up and then pulled it.
So you guys had the wrong name, identified as the shooter, and it was actually the husband of the girl involved, right?
Yeah.
So you actually identified the person correctly, but obviously he wasn't actually the shooter. He was the husband of this Mary Lou, who was then the girlfriend of the actual shooter. So he is involved, but more tangentially, and actually not the shooter. But that was correct reporting. So you guys took it down, this Mary Lou Danley. So you guys took down that post within 10 minutes.
Yeah.
How has the mainstream media responded to you guys taking down your post in 10 minutes?
Listen, I was just screaming at Oliver Darcy over at CNN on the phone in the room back there. It is absurd.
I heard you. I heard the voice. I was like, man, I've never heard Lucian yell at anybody before.
I mean, it's honestly enraging to me, Jack, that again, rather than them focusing on Americans being radicalized by Islamic extremists, that we're focusing on a story that literally nobody saw. Listen, I will say we do InfoWars and Gateway Pundit. We all have incredible news sites. Nobody's really reading us, to the best of my knowledge, at 4 a.m. Nobody's right. I mean, it's just such a nonsensical thing to me.
So
that
you guys
it's
pulled it down. Meanwhile, the mainstream media will push things out there for days and days. Just yesterday, we had Paul Krugman of the New York Times who tweeted that people are dying in Puerto Rico of a massive cholera outbreak. New York Times, Paul Krugman, 9,000, probably 10,000 at this point, retweets. He didn't take the tweet down, but later in the day he responded, "Oh, I misspoke. It wasn't cholera. It was just a basic infection that was going on." So the New York Times completely spreading all of this fake news about the cholera outbreak, blames it completely on President Trump. But why isn't the mainstream media calling out the New York Times for this?
Tell you
why
what,
are they focused on you?
Do you remember when the Daily Beast misidentified the San Bernardino shooter? They didn't just pull that post. They issued one of these retractions. They didn't pull it after 10 minutes. They took a while misidentifying that guy. What is it? Huffington Post, Slate. Do you remember when they misidentified, the Newton shooter? I mean, come on. The New York Times, everybody from the New York Times, it's wild. It is wild to me how they ignore their own missteps in the mainstream media. This smarmy club ignores continuous false reporting, and misidentification is just part of it. Half their stories, propaganda for the left. Half their stories are false.
Well, we know this, and we know that it comes down to they don't want.
I'm sorry,
people,
I'm getting worked up.
They don't want. No, it's good. It's good.
It's very agitated.
You're a little triggered. You just need to be a little less triggered, but you should be triggered by these people and what they're doing, because the whole point of this is they are scared to death of people reading Gateway Pundit. They're scared to death of people listening to and watching InfoWars as InfoWars expands to more and more stations, to more and more listeners. They don't want alternate sources of information out there. So they're going to blame you guys of doing stuff that's far less than the mistakes they have made themselves in order to make people stop listening, to tune out, because they know that the minute that they that you stop listening to them, that's the minute that they've broken their hold on you, that someone's mind is becoming free, and they're actually able to question things, to question narratives, and suddenly their entire narrative of an alternate reality where Hillary should have been president falls apart. That down to you. Stick with it right here. We've got another big segment coming up with myself and Lucian Wintrich from Gateway. Okay, so a lot of news today, breaking it all down. Lucian Wintrich riding co-pilot with me here today on the big 4th hour. Wanted to take a quick second from all of the breaking news, all of the coming in information about Las Vegas, to remind you guys about the specials that we have up at InfoWars Store. Look, we do a lot of work. We do a lot of stuff, but we've got to support it. We've got to keep the movement going. We've got to keep the show going. We've got to keep the info war going. That's how we do it. Brainforce Plus, the new special. I'm so excited that Brainforce Plus is having a special again. I was just down in Austin. I got to try some for the first time. I was wired. But it was a good kind of feeling. It wasn't like an energy drink. It's just, it turns you on. It keeps you going for hours. And instead of dropping you out, you actually, it's like a cool, smooth sort of feeling where it picks you up, but it doesn't drop you down like an energy drink, like a Monster.
It's herbal.
does.
You're not taking drugs, right?
Exactly. It's herbal. It's natural. You're looking at stuff that's not like, that doesn't have all the artificial chemicals that these energy drinks do. That's what's so great about Brainforce. That's why I really enjoyed it. And I'm so glad that if you go to InfoWars Store right now, it's got the 50% off. I don't know how long they'll have that up, because Brainforce, one of the top products that comes out there.
If the folks at CNN were taking this, their reporting might be better.
The reporting might be better. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. If Hillary had been taking Brainforce, who knows how well she may have done in some of the debates. One of the other specials that we have up right now at InfoWars Store, the Alexa Pure Breeze Air Purifier. I've got to tell you, and Lucian, I was down there. I got to experience the Alexa Pure for the first time. They have it set up all throughout the InfoWars studios. I mean, what this does for the air in there, it creates that nice, moist, crisp, fresh feeling. They're 20% off this week. You put it in the room, you just set it up there.
So you
have it
have
going.
a problem with the air here.
It's I don't have a problem with the air here. I have the problem with the air everywhere where there isn't an Alexa Pure. No. But it really worked. The filters, you can put these in and out. This is what the people, and I true to their word, this is what the InfoWars Store uses. This is what everyone that uses in the production facility, and it was so clean. It keeps the area so incredibly clean, because there's a 4-stage purification system: pre-filter, a carbon filter, the True HEPA filter. So it's not like one of your dehumidifiers and it's just running through one filter and that gets dirty. There's 4 separate filters. It runs the air through that. It's amazing. It's really amazing.
It sounds expensive. How much is it?
They're coming in right now. It's 20% off. Total price $159.
I can afford that.
That is it. That is it. That's 20% off, $159. Yeah, if you for an apartment, for any size house, great product to have, really excellent. So I wanted to put it in there and make sure people knew about that before we break down some more of the news today that's going on. So getting back to Las Vegas, getting back to this breaking news, the stories that we've heard. Lucian, what is your take on this, right? Why is the media so hell-bent on saying that it wasn't ISIS when they don't actually seem to have any evidence whatsoever about who this guy was or what his actual background or motivation they're going into it?
I mean, it really is wild. We have seen, and we're waiting for more news to break. This is a fresh story, right?
Yes.
We're still getting tips. We're still getting information. There have been, and it's terrifying to me. There have been an uptick in white people who fall for the propaganda of ISIS, who are recruited. We've had Italians. We've seen this with Italians, with Brits, right? The little Italian girl. Do you remember her being recruited by ISIS?
Yes.
She was unhappy with that decision later on.
Well, you see, you find a lot of this, and what we saw when I was in Guantanamo Bay, when I worked in the intelligence community, is that typically what you would see when it came to recruits, right? And we're not sure if this guy was a recruit yet or not. So I want to put that out there and make sure everybody knows. But there are ways to lure Westerners. CNN reported on this. There are ways to find people. And typically what you want to do is what they attempt to do is, I should say, the Islamists, whether it be Al Qaeda, whether it be ISIS, they find someone who's already close to that tipping point. Whether it's who's vulnerable, whether it's the rebelliousness of youth, whether it's poverty, whether it's someone who has a gripe with the system, gambling debt, a potential avenue in this case, being in debt, in massive debt, finding a way out. That is exactly who they speak to. And ISIS, because they've had so much trouble, because the Trump administration has done such a good job of blocking people from coming from the Middle East to the U.S., which I believe we call the travel ban, which they've been trying very hard to do, really pushing harder with this, as to have that travel ban. So they, instead of being able to just send operatives from the Middle East, from their training camps over to the U.S., they're instead focusing on people that they find through the internet, focusing on people that they can find that are already sort of at that tipping point, and all they need to do is kind of push them a little bit further to get them over the edge. Is that the case in this situation? Is this someone who maybe through gambling debts, through financial hardships, through financial distress himself, wanting instead to, we saw that he conducted a lawsuit against the casino in Las Vegas there years ago. Is it possible that he had a gripe with casinos in general, and then did that become a gripe with sort of American culture? And this is something that we see a lot on the left.
Well, it's also, this really hasn't been explored. This was he targeted a country music festival. He was targeting, listen, I like country music. He was targeting conservatives.
Tanya Tay and I go to country music festivals all the time, not in that particular city, but we go to one, ones in the DC area, Virginia.
That's terrifying. Yes. This was, the mainstream media is trying to play this up as, oh, thank goodness it was a white man this time. We don't know what his motivations are. We're waiting to hear that, right?
We're still waiting to hear a lot of gambling connections, a lot of people pointing back to that. So
it is, by the way, it is disgusting how the leftist media has applauded that this was a white shooter.
Absolutely. You saw that there were numerous accounts I saw earlier, Twitter accounts going back and forth saying, well, it wasn't a Muslim. That it wasn't a Muslim because Trump hasn't tweeted about it yet. Well, Trump only cares about Muslims. Well, he's ordered the flags at half staff. He's tweeted out his condolences. He's tweeted about raising, I don't know if he's tweeted out, but they've talked about raising, he gave a statement. They talked about raising blood, donating blood, raising those donations. The Las Vegas, Nevada Gaming Commission is running a GoFundMe that's almost reached $1 million in just a few hours. So there's an outpouring, from American society, to include Republicans and conservatives, to include the president who's ordered the flags at half-mast. Mm-hmm. But they want to make it political, and they want to make it racial, and they want to say, see, it wasn't a Muslim. Because in their worldview, they think that only the conservatives and Trump supporters only care about attacking Muslims. Is that right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I do want to. Do we have any more intel on this guy's actual politics?
Not that I've seen. There was that report.
Do you think he is? Here's a question.
Alex put out the report earlier today. Mm-hmm. He put out a report earlier today that he may have been found with some Antifa type material in the room. So we haven't been able to confirm that yet. Alex was reporting on that earlier today, that he may have had some Antifa type material in the room, but it hasn't yet been confirmed.
I'll bet you my apartment here with the terrible air I currently have that this guy was a leftist, that this guy was absolutely a leftist. You can tell. Why would he target a country music festival?
Well, I will say this.
And when was the last? Honestly, all these shooters, all these incidents that we've been having, they're either coming from radical Islam or the left.
We also see. So people were talking a lot about the demographics, and we've just done our last 2 minutes here. The demographics of the shooter. They said it doesn't fit with the typical ISIS recruit, but who it does reminds me of is James T. Hodgkinson. James T. Hodgkinson, who was the shooter of Steve Scalise, was also an older white man who had planned in advance that he wanted to attack Republicans, that he wanted to plan in advance that he wanted to attack people who were Trump supporters.
And that guy was radicalized not by the Islamic State, but by the mainstream media. by
CNN.
Yeah.
Firm believer in Trump Russia. He thought that Trump was a traitor and that he wanted to stop these traitors from what they were doing to the country. Definitely fits the demographic, at least demographic profile of James T. Hodgkinson. Thankfully, thank God that Steve Scalise has been actually returned from the hospital. He's now back in Congress, survived that shooting. Will we find that the demographics match up here? Last thoughts, Lucian.
You know, I think we're all just at the edge of our seat waiting to see, was it ISIS? Was it the radical leftist media? What turned this guy? What's behind this story? I mean, I think the entire nation is waiting to see what actually turned this guy.
And that's what we're doing here. That's what is so great about InfoWars. That's why we ask people to go to the InfoWars store to support what we're doing, because we are taking in all sources. We're talking to people on the ground. We've got War Room coming up next, where people are going to be getting more information as this story unfolds. We are going to be going to sources outside of the mainstream media, people who were there, people who posted things online, because we want to give people the full picture of what happened before we set forward with a narrative. So stick it right here for War Room. Thank you.
Let's go to Debit in Florida. Debit in Florida, you're on the air.
Great. Hey, thank you so much. Listen, I have bought your product, and I gotta say they're amazing. Anyone who's on the fence, buy it, because I've got Caveman, Superman Vitality, Secret 12, Vitamin Mineral Fusion. I've got the body armor.
Wow, thank you. Wow. You're the type of listener that makes it all possible. Which nutraceutical does you like best?
I really like the Vitamin Mineral Fusion, to be honest. That's
amazing.
Really incredible. I drank it in the morning, and I swear to you, I felt incredible. Like, I haven't felt weak. My morning was fantastic, and I love you guys. I love the InfoWars crew. And I just want to, I want to take this opportunity to tell anybody out there who's on the fence, just buy it. You will love it. I'm telling you, I've never bought a bad product.
What you find in our news is the same thing you find in our products at InfoWarsLife.com. It's a win-win. InfoWarsLife.com.